Just as the place was still buzzing, someone rushed over and urged Ling Huqiang to get up, because the Xiao family's eldest young lady had arrived at the gate. He slowly opened his eyes. He rubbed his forehead, then froze as a crucial memory came flooding back. The man beside him kept asking questions, but he could only mutter one thought: damn, I got dragged into another novel. Seeing him lost in thought, the man smacked him on the head and yelled at him to hurry outside and welcome the guest. Ling Huqiang held his head in confusion, still clueless about what was happening. Before arriving here, he had been the CEO of the Ling Hu Group, one of the 4 great families in Zheng City. Right then, the familiar system voice echoed, explaining that the man who hit him was his grandfather in this new identity. The system revealed this was the world of 4 Seas Dragon King Returns, and the story had already reached chapter 35. Before he could process it all, another shock came. This time he was the villain Ling Hu Hong, with only 5 chapters left before his tragic end. Just like always, his mission was simple: survive at all costs. He forced a bitter smile, wondering if those 5 chapters were a blessing or a curse. While he was thinking, his grandfather smacked him again and ordered him to get to the gate at once to greet the Xiao family's eldest young lady, warning him not to test his patience. Ling Hu Hong rubbed his head, answered reluctantly, and walked outside. As soon as he reached the gate, a female bodyguard greeted him first, and he politely returned the greeting. Walking past her, he wondered how many times he had transmigrated into novels. There had been so many that he had lost count. He gently closed his eyes as the memories resurfaced. It had all started with an accident when a massive billboard shook violently before its support frame suddenly collapsed. At the moment he thought death was certain, the system suddenly appeared and pulled him into the villain project. A deafening crash echoed as the billboard slammed down, covering the ground in blood and throwing everyone nearby into panic. From then on, he was sent into countless novel worlds, always becoming a doomed villain who had to fight for survival and earn rewards. Only after collecting enough rewards could he return to his original world. Although he had succeeded a few times, his failures far outnumbered them, reminding him of one mission in a war zone. Even in the middle of bombs and gunfire, he laughed without fear. He even caught bullets with his bare hands and threw them back so fast that his enemies were left speechless. He boldly declared that no one could ever shoot him. An enemy had just raised his head to speak, when a bomb exploded behind him and ended everything. In another martial arts world, he was pierced through the heart by the Supreme Sword Immortal before he could even react. In a cultivation world, things were no better, as a swordsman in white stabbed him the instant he appeared beside a cliff. As the memories faded, the system announced that story synchronization was complete and wished the host good luck surviving. Back in the present, Ling Hu Hong stood at the gate with the bodyguards, as a luxury car slowly drove in and stopped. One look at the scene was enough for him to realize the next plot was the classic hero stealing the beauty. The car door opened, and the first thing to appear was a pair of long legs in high heels. Moments later, Xiao Qiran stepped out with stunning beauty and elegant poise. He instantly guessed that if she was here, then the male lead had to be nearby. Sure enough, 3 more people stepped out behind her. Among them was an exceptionally handsome man. Ling Hu Hong could only sigh because the male lead's aura was simply overwhelming. Even though he was unhappy, he smiled warmly, invited Miss Xiao inside, and even offered to carry her bag. In return, she gave him a cold glance and firmly refused to let him touch her. He looked calm on the outside, but inside he was already trembling with frustration. He could only comfort himself by thinking that flattering a beauty was a small price to pay for staying alive. Xiao Qiran looked at him like he was a complete weirdo, while all the details about her character flashed through his mind. Ling Hu Hong had chased Xiao Qiran for an entire year without success. The man standing behind her was Zhang Beishuan, the Dragon King of Zheng City, and the undisputed male lead of the story. For now, he was merely a bodyguard assigned to protect Xiao Qiran. But Ling Hu Hong knew better than anyone that this was only the beginning, because the male lead would inevitably rise to the very top. Zhang Beishuan stared at him with icy eyes, making no effort to hide his disgust. Instead, Xiao Qiran smiled and handed her bag to Zhang Beishuan. He gladly took it and walked beside her, leaving Ling Hu Hong behind. Watching the scene, he could only smile bitterly. The old Ling Hu Hong had poured countless resources into the Xiao family, yet Xiao Qiran's heart had always belonged to Zhang Beishuan. Even though they were only friends for now, Ling Hu Hong knew the future would not change. With only 5 chapters left, there was no chance of coming between them. He sighed. This was a harem story, and the male lead would eventually win every beauty. A villain like him was destined to die. A quick death almost sounded better than struggling for nothing. But just then, he loudly called out to Miss Xiao because he had something to say. Xiao Qiran stopped. She turned around with a cold expression, saying she had no interest in hearing him, but she also had something to tell him. One look at her face was enough for Ling Hu Hong to guess what she was about to say. Just as he expected, Xiao Qiran firmly declared that he should give up because she would never accept their engagement. Even if the Ling Hu family pressured her father with benefits, she would still refuse. But before she could finish, Ling Hu Hong calmly nodded and said he was planning to cancel the engagement as well. The unexpected answer left Xiao Churan speechless. Her eyes widened in complete disbelief. Hearing Ling Hu Hong bring up canceling the engagement himself shocked her even more. Standing beside her, Jiang Beishuan looked at Ling Hu Hong with suspicion, wondering what he was plotting this time. Xiao Churan became even more cautious and coldly asked if he was putting on an act. She insisted that no matter what he said or did, she would never trust him so easily. Ling Hu Hong quickly raised a hand, signaling her to calm down. He gave a helpless smile and denied trying to deceive her. But Xiao Churan simply crossed her arms and scoffed, saying she had seen everything he had done over the past year, and it was far too late to change his image. After saying that, she slowly walked toward him. Ling Hu Hong was speechless inside. He thought the girl was far too naive. She was so focused on chasing Jiang Beishuan that she could not see the truth, while he was the one being misunderstood. After grumbling to himself, he just wanted to send the guests away and end the whole matter. But Xiao Churan suddenly froze. She quickly looked around in shock after hearing a strange voice. She was the only woman here, so was someone really calling her an idiot? While she was still unsure, Ling Hu Hong remained calm and told her she was overthinking it. He said that once they met the elders and agreed to cancel the engagement, she could finally relax. Xiao Churan kept a cold expression, while Jiang Beishuan also looked visibly displeased. The three of them then walked into the estate together. At that moment, the system discovered a serious data link error. Part of the host's inner thoughts could now be heard by people in this world. It wanted to warn Ling Hu Hong, but it feared being wiped and reset, so it quietly applied a temporary fix. From now on, only insults and mocking thoughts would leak out. Everything else would depend on his luck. Meanwhile, Ling Hu Hong carefully analyzed the plot and realized that his conflict with Jiang Beishuan had always started because of Xiao Churan. If the engagement disappeared, the male lead would have no reason to target him anymore. The more he thought about it, the brighter his chances of survival looked. A strange grin spread across his face, making even the system shiver. Before long, everyone arrived outside the room. Xiao Churan turned to Jiang Beishuan and told him to stay outside, find a place to rest, and wait for her. Jiang Beishuan obediently nodded. Xiao Churan walked inside, but the mysterious voice kept lingering in her mind. As she walked past Ling Hu Hong, she heard his inner voice again, wondering why she had not brought Jiang Beishuan inside like she usually did. He even felt relieved that Jiang Beishuan had not lost his temper. That seemed like a promising sign. Entering the room, Ling Hu Hong stood behind his grandfather and announced that he had brought Miss Xiao inside. His grandfather smiled warmly and invited her to take a seat. Beside him, Xiao Churan's father lifted his teacup with a deeply satisfied smile. His grandfather immediately told his grandson to stop being so formal and call her Churan instead, then ordered him to pour her some tea. Ling Hu Hong obediently poured the tea, but all he wanted was for the engagement to be cancelled as soon as possible. He had no intention of getting involved with the most beautiful woman in Zheng City. She was better off joining Jiang Beishuan's future harem, while he focused on surviving this novel. Hearing every word of his inner thoughts, Xiao Churan instantly broke into a cold sweat. She was both annoyed and confused. Being insulted was one thing, but why did he keep insisting she would become part of Jiang Beishuan's harem? She recalled all the times Jiang Beishuan had protected her, even confidently claiming that he would not fear facing 10 more enemies. She trusted Jiang Beishuan because he had saved her many times, but the harem claim sounded completely absurd. Could there really be rumors spreading outside? While Xiao Churan was lost in thought, Ling Hu Hong walked over with the tea. Ling Hu Hong's grandfather and Xiao Churan's father looked at the pair with satisfied smiles. Then the grandfather happily announced that it was time for them to get engaged. The moment she heard the word engagement, Xiao Churan slammed her hand against the chair. She firmly declared that she would never accept this marriage. She said she had no feelings for Ling Hu Hong, and since marriage was a lifelong commitment, she only wanted to be with the person she truly loved. Hearing those words, Ling Hu Hong nearly burst with joy. He immediately agreed, saying that forcing a marriage would never bring happiness, so the engagement had to be cancelled. Xiao Churan turned toward him in surprise. She never expected him to stand on her side this time. But her father stepped forward, grabbed Ling Hu Hong's hand, and said emotionally that he understood his devotion. Giving in to Churan on small matters was fine, but marriage was too important, and he insisted they would definitely get married. Hearing that, Ling Hu Hang frantically waved his hands and seriously explained that Miss Xiao was not acting on impulse. In his eyes, she had always known right from wrong since childhood. If she did not want to marry, then everyone should respect her decision instead of forcing her. Xiao Churan folded her arms and watched him in confusion. Just yesterday, he had sent her a 5,000-word love letter, promising to sacrifice everything for her and calling her the most precious person in his life. Yet after only one night, his attitude had completely changed. Her father became even more moved. He believed Ling Hu Hong loved his daughter so deeply that he did not even care about having a title, but he still refused to let her do as she pleased. Ling Hu Hong could only sigh to himself. A businessman really did have a unique way of twisting every situation. Xiao Churan's father then turned to scold his daughter for being stubborn and declared that this marriage would definitely happen. Ling Hu Hong immediately dropped to his knees and hugged the man's leg while begging desperately. He pleaded with everyone to give up on the marriage alliance and spare his life. While he begged aloud, he secretly called Xiao Churan an idiot. She had boldly opposed the marriage outside, yet now she refused to tell her own father the truth. Xiao Churan heard every word of his inner thoughts, and a cold smile appeared on her lips. She grabbed Ling Hu Hong by the collar and said she finally understood everything. All his talk about caring for her and canceling the engagement was nothing but an excuse because his feelings had changed. Hearing that, Ling Hu Hong froze in complete disbelief. She let go, looked at her father and Ling Hu Hang's grandfather, and calmly said she had thought it through. Even if there was no love now, it could always grow later. As soon as she finished speaking, she agreed to the marriage between the two families. The decision struck Ling Hu Hong like a bolt of lightning, leaving him completely speechless. He stared at Xiao Churan in panic and stammered that she did not have to force herself. Inside, however, he was screaming, wondering if she had taken the wrong medicine. If she was not thinking straight, she should go home and rest instead of changing her mind overnight. He even wondered what on earth was inside her head. Unlike him, Xiao Churan calmly sat down in front of him. She reminded everyone that marriages were arranged by their elders, then casually rested her arm on his shoulder with a smile and asked if he no longer liked her. Ling Hu Hong was startled and waved both hands frantically. He hurriedly claimed that he still liked her, while silently crying out in despair. Deep down, he thought he would rather fall for a pig. Love was not the issue anymore. What he really wanted was to find out how empty her head actually was. After hearing all those thoughts, Xiao Churan's lips curled into an amused smile. She never expected Ling Hu Hong's inner world to be so entertaining. Watching his helpless expression while his inner voice screamed nonstop suddenly became surprisingly fun. Unable to take it anymore, Ling Hu Hong grabbed Xiao Suoren's hand and pulled her outside. He asked the elders to let them talk in private for a moment. The two elders happily agreed and even hoped the marriage would spark real feelings. The moment they stepped out, Ling Hu Hong demanded to know why Xiao Suoren had suddenly changed her mind. In a quiet corner, he looked her in the eye and asked if the engagement could still be called off. Xiao Suoren calmly leaned against the wall and said the marriage had always been arranged, so she saw no reason to refuse. Ling Hu Hong reminded her she once said she would only marry the man she loved and begged her to cancel the marriage because she used to hate him. Xiao Suoren smiled, touched her cheek, and said she liked no one right now, but maybe love would grow after they got married. That answer nearly broke Ling Hu Hong. He silently begged her to stop because if she really fell for him, Zhang Beishuan would surely kill him. Xiao Suoren could not understand why Ling Hu Hong feared Zhang Beishuan so much when he was only a bodyguard. Ling Hu Hong held his head and sighed, feeling everything had slipped out of control. He suddenly punched the wall and asked one last time if she would cancel the engagement. Xiao Suoren only smiled and firmly refused, then calmly asked what he could possibly do about it. Ling Hu Hong was left speechless and completely helpless. He knew he could never force her to change her mind. Just then, the host raised a glass and invited everyone to celebrate the future engaged couple. The hall instantly filled with cheers and lively conversations. Everyone believed the alliance between the Xiao and Ling Hu families would make both even stronger. Some even claimed the rumors about Xiao Suoren rejecting Ling Hu Hong had clearly been fake. Amid the celebration, only Zhang Beishuan stood in the back with an icy expression, the wine glass in his hand shattered under his grip. Then he openly objected to the marriage in front of everyone. The moment Zhang Beishuan appeared, Ling Hu Hong felt a chill, knowing the main character had finally arrived, while Elder Xiao turned and asked who he was. Zhang Beishuan smirked and told him to look closer. Elder Xiao frowned and searched his memory. The guests also grew excited, thinking some important figure had appeared. After a while, Elder Xiao finally remembered that he was only his daughter's bodyguard. He immediately declared that a bodyguard had no right to interfere with the Xiao family's marriage. The crowd burst into laughter, mocking a mere bodyguard for daring to oppose the union of two great families. Ling Hu Hong could only pray they would stop provoking the main character. Elder Xiao then announced Zhang Beishuan had already been fired. Today was his last day entering the Xiao family and mocked him for ending up as a shoe shiner. Hearing that, Zhang Beishuan only laughed with contempt. He calmly said he had shown restraint only because of Xiao Suoren, then asked if Elder Xiao really believed he alone could decide his daughter's marriage. Those arrogant words even upset Xiao Suoren, who felt that if anyone had the right to decide her marriage, it was her father, not a bodyguard, making her realize she had misjudged Zhang Beishuan. Elder Xiao finally lost his temper, refused to waste another word, and ordered his men to drag Zhang Beishuan out. Two bodyguards quickly stepped forward and surrounded Zhang Beishuan. He glanced at them, cracked his knuckles, and sneered that two men were not enough because he wanted to fight 10 alone. The entire hall fell silent as Elder Xiao ordered every bodyguard to attack together. Even against the large group, Zhang Beishuan remained perfectly calm. He only made his move once they closed in. The first attacker was dropped with one punch, and the next was sent flying with a powerful kick. Every attack was effortlessly dodged and shut down by Zhang Beishuan. Someone shouted for everyone to charge at once, but nothing changed. After a fierce battle, Zhang Beishuan still stood proudly in the middle of the hall, without a wrinkle on his clothes, while every bodyguard lay defeated. He swept a cold gaze across the crowd and challenged everyone to come at him together. Watching the scene unfold like a typical novel, Ling Hu Hong trembled inside, knowing the main character was truly furious, and fearing he might be the next victim. He instantly put on a friendly smile, clapped his hands, and praised Zhang Beishuan's incredible skills. He even ran over to win his favor. Ling Hu Hong quickly promised that Xiao Suoran would never marry him, exactly as Zhang Beishuan wanted. But Zhang Beishuan only snorted and ignored him, leaving Ling Hu Hong awkwardly hanging. Meanwhile, the guests kept whispering. Some blamed Zhang Beishuan for ruining the engagement, while others praised Ling Hu Hong's status and manners, saying anyone would choose the young master over a bodyguard who only knew how to fight. The more they talked, the more helpless Ling Hu Hong felt, with no idea how to react. Unlike him, Zhang Beishuan clenched his fists as anger spread across his face. In his eyes, everything was part of a carefully planned scheme. Hearing that conclusion, Ling Hu Hong was stunned, wondering how badly the story had gone off the rails. Normally, the crowd should have turned the main character against the villain, but instead, they were defending him. Ling Hu Hong could only pray Zhang Beishuan would take Xiao Suoran away, because she was supposed to belong to the main character. Looking at Zhang Beishuan, Ling Hu Hong silently blamed him for wasting the perfect chance. Across the room, Xiao Suoran quietly watched everything and could not help laughing. To her, Ling Hu Hong's calm face was the complete opposite of the frantic thoughts racing through his head like an excited husky. The more she listened to his panicked thoughts, the harder it became to hold back her laughter, forcing her to lean against the sofa. His cold CEO image had completely fallen apart. Zhang Beishuan then walked over to Xiao Suoran, placed a hand on his chest, and sincerely said he did not care what anyone else thought, as long as she was happy. As soon as he reached her, he dropped to one knee. He gently called Xiao Suoran's name and vowed that as long as he was here, no one would force her to marry another man, no matter how many obstacles stood in his way. Faced with his heartfelt confession, Xiao Suoran only frowned slightly. Meanwhile, Ling Hu Hong was overjoyed, silently cheering Zhang Beishuan on, and hoping he would simply carry Xiao Suoran away, because he definitely would not chase them. That hope vanished when Xiao Suoran coldly told Zhang Beishuan to stop dreaming. Ling Hu Hong felt like a bucket of cold water had been dumped over him. In a normal story, she should have been moved and gone with the main character. Xiao Suoran glanced at him, seemingly hearing every one of those thoughts again. Just then, Zhang Beishuan grabbed her hand and gently told her not to worry because he would take her away. Xiao Suoran's expression immediately turned cold. She shook off his hand, stood up, and bluntly asked who said she wanted to leave with him, then mocked him for acting crazy. After saying that, she turned and called out to Ling Hu Hong. The sudden call startled him, and he answered without thinking. Zhang Beishuan froze in place, completely unable to understand what was happening. Xiao Suoran calmly walked away, leaving Zhang Beishuan clenching his fists in anger. As she approached, she finally understood what Ling Hu Hong had been trying to tell her. If this world was truly a novel, and she was destined to become part of Zhang Beishuan's harem, then following him today would only fulfill that fate. Xiao Suoran slowly stopped in front of Ling Hu Hong. After hearing his inner thoughts all day, she had finally understood what he truly felt. Ling Hu Hong took a step back every time she moved closer, completely flustered. Seeing that, Zhang Beishuan immediately flew into a rage, shouted Xiao Suoran's name, and stepped between them. He assumed she was worried Ling Hu Hong would keep bothering her, or even hurt her in the future. Ling Hu Hong's heart pounded, as he wondered if Zhang Beishuan was really about to attack him. Zhang Beishuan leaned in and coldly warned that as long as he lived, Ling Hu Hong would never lay a finger on Xiao Suoran. Ling Hu Hong turned pale, broke into a cold sweat, and nervously asked if there had been some misunderstanding. At that moment, Xiao Suoran coldly pushed Zhang Beishuan aside and told him to move because she needed to speak with Ling Hu Hong alone. Zhang Beishuan grew even more confused, insisting he knew she never wanted to see Ling Hu Hong and was only forcing herself so he could handle everything for her. That left Xiao Suoran completely speechless, while Ling Hu Hong kept sweating. She finally lost her temper and shouted for Zhang Beishuan to stop making things up because she would never go with him. But Zhang Beishuan refused to accept her rejection. He grabbed both of her hands and insisted she was lying to protect him because she feared revenge from the Ling Hu family. Xiao Suoran froze on the spot. She could only think that Zhang Beishuan's way of thinking was beyond saving. Meanwhile, he smiled brightly, took her silence as agreement, and praised her for being so kind and considerate. Looking deeply moved, he declared that a gentle woman like Xiao Suoran could never belong to Ling Hu Hong. The smile instantly vanished as he turned a murderous glare toward Ling Hu Hong. That look alone sent chills down Ling Hu Hong's spine. He silently cursed, because none of this had ever happened in the original story. He knew Zhang Beishuan truly intended to kill him, but somehow he was even more annoyed with Xiao Suoran. In his mind, he kept blaming her for acting too convincingly and pushing him straight toward death. Xiao Suoran heard every one of those thoughts and became so irritated, she wanted to ask if he had lost his mind. They stared at each other, one furious and the other completely helpless. Just as the tension reached its peak, Elder Xiao stepped forward. He stood in front of Ling Ho Hong and shouted at Zhang Beishuan that his only son-in-law would be Ling Ho Hong. Ling Hu Hong was speechless, wanting to laugh and cry at the same time, because the Xiao family seemed determined to push him into danger. His resentment instantly shifted to Elder Xiao, who suddenly felt a chill down his spine, without knowing why. Zhang Beishuan pointed at Elder Xiao and accused him of forcing Xiao Suoran to marry a useless man like Ling Hu Hong, asking if he was worthy of being called her father. He then looked at Xiao Suoran and swore he would never marry anyone but her. She immediately stepped back, waved her hands, and firmly said she would never leave with him. She was almost in tears, because he simply refused to listen to anything she said. Even after being rejected again and again, Zhang Beishuan smiled confidently and told her to stay for now, because he would definitely return to take her away. Watching everything unfold, Ling Hu Hong was completely baffled. He could not understand why Xiao Suoran still refused to leave, since the story had already gone completely off track. Zhang Beishuan turned to him with an icy stare and warned that Ling Hu Hong's peaceful days were numbered, and their next meeting would be his last. He then pointed toward everyone in the hall. He declared that one day, everyone who had looked down on him would kneel and beg for forgiveness. A terrifying aura instantly erupted from him. Ling Hu Hong was completely stunned. He hurried after Zhang Beishuan, begging him to change his mind, and even pleading with him to take Xiao Suoran away. But Zhang Beishuan only sneered, thinking Ling Ho Hong was mocking him, and vowed to keep his promise. Meanwhile, Xiao Suoran quietly watched Ling Ho Hong, making him even more uneasy. He could only pray Zhang Beishuan would take her away, so he would not come back for his life later. Caught between two men who would not stop arguing, Xiao Suoran rubbed her forehead in exhaustion. She finally snapped and shouted for both of them to be quiet. Her outburst instantly silenced both Zhang Beishuan and Ling Hu Hong. Then, before the stunned eyes of everyone in the hall, Xiao Churan suddenly grabbed Ling Hu Hong's hand and kissed him right on the lips. They both turned bright red, while Ling Hu Hong froze completely in shock. Xiao Churan calmly faced Zhang Beishuan and asked if that was enough proof she wanted to marry Ling Ho Hong, because he was the one she loved, and Zhang could leave now. Those words struck Zhang Beishuan like a bolt of lightning. His face turned pale as he kept shaking his head, refusing to accept the truth, convinced she had only lost her way and that he would bring her back. Before leaving, he threatened to destroy the entire Ling Hu group. While Ling Hu Hong was still stunned, the system appeared with exciting news that the first stage mission was complete. The system confirmed Xiao Churan had switched sides and would help the host survive the next 5 chapters. At the same time, the second stage mission unlocked with a reward of a 600 square meter lakeside villa. Hearing that, Ling Hu Hong dropped to his knees, laughing and crying at the same time. He already had more money than he could ever spend, and now he even owned a luxury villa. Inside the lakeside villa he had just earned, Ling Hu Hong relaxed on a huge bed, sipped wine, hummed a tune, and enjoyed one of the few peaceful moments he had. He even joked with the system that after the birthday banquet he could finally rest for a few days. Seeing the system hesitate, he asked what was going on. The system immediately delivered bad news. Stage 2 had officially begun. Ling Hu Hong's mood crashed as the system explained what would happen next. According to the original story, everything started after the forced marriage incident. Ling Hu Hong and Xiao Churan would accompany Xiao Dazhuang to the banquet hosted by Tanju, the chairman of the Dihao group. Since Tanju was over 70 and in poor health, many guests brought famous doctors and rare medicines to earn his favor. Ling Hu Hong also prepared a renowned physician and planned to ask Xiao Dazhuang for an introduction so they could treat Tanju. But at that very moment, Zhang Beishuan appeared, shoved the doctor aside, and declared he was nowhere near qualified to treat Elder Tan. He then revealed the 9 Heavens Mysterious Yin Sacred Medical Manual and claimed he had already mastered its highest level. Right before everyone's eyes, Zhang Beishuan used his medical arts and helped Elder Tan rise from his wheelchair. Tanju was overwhelmed with gratitude, while Ling Hu Hong could only sit quietly in despair. The system added that this event caused Ling Hu Hong to lose the Xiao family's support, starting the chain of tragedies that eventually led to his death. Tanju even patted Zhang Beishuan on the shoulder and told Xiao Dazhuang never to bring that son-in-law to see him again. The scene left both Ling Hu Hong and the famous doctor speechless, with no idea how to react. After hearing the full story, Ling Hu Hong gritted his teeth as he realized the banquet was happening today. He slumped into a chair and sighed helplessly, knowing Jiang Beishuan had probably mastered the Nine Heavens' mysterious yin sacred medical manual. It looked like another public humiliation was unavoidable. Seeing the host lose confidence, the system reminded him that a villain had to fight back, and survival remained the top priority. Just then, the bedroom door burst open. Someone rushed in and reported that Elder Tan's banquet was today, and young Master Ling Hu had to leave immediately. The moment the system saw the newcomer, it panicked because it recognized him as Ho Qiang. It quickly warned that he was infamous as the bringer of bad luck. As long as Ho Qiang stayed by the host's side, the chance of disaster would increase by half. After hearing that, Ling Hu Hong instantly came up with a plan. He walked over, patted Ho Qiang on the shoulder, and happily announced that working as a bodyguard was wasting his talent. Starting today, he would be transferred to Jun Street as a stock trader for the Ling Hu family. Carrying his luggage, Ho Qiang admitted in confusion that he knew absolutely nothing about trading. Ling Hu Hong only laughed and encouraged him to learn from scratch, saying the most important thing was believing in himself. Not long after, Ho Qiang was already on a plane, still wearing a confused expression, while Ling Hu Hong enthusiastically waved goodbye from below. Hearing all the non-stop encouragement, Ho Qiang was so touched that his eyes turned red. Only after the plane disappeared into the sky did Ling Hu Hong wipe the sweat from his forehead. He finally felt relieved after sending that ticking time bomb far away. It was definitely the safer choice. But the moment he glanced at his watch, his expression changed, because the banquet was about to begin. The scene shifted to the luxurious villa, where the banquet was being held as waves of guests streamed into the grand hall. A luxury car slowly pulled up to the entrance. Ling Hu Hong adjusted his tie while talking on the phone. He gently called Xiao Churan, told her he had arrived, and asked when she would get there. He sounded calm on the outside, but secretly reminded himself that they were already fiancé and fiancée in the script, so talking like this was perfectly normal. Just then, a stunning beauty with a gorgeous figure stepped out of a car. Her tight black dress and bright orange hair instantly drew every eye. She walked straight toward Ling Hu Hong. Then she suddenly reached out and grabbed his shirt. Ling Hu Hong looked at the woman in surprise. He had a strange feeling they had met before. After thinking for a few seconds, he finally remembered who she was. The mysterious woman rested a hand on her hip and stared at Ling Hu Hong with a charming yet dangerously unreadable smile. Ling Hu Hong stood frozen for a moment before hesitantly calling her by name, Mao Chu Yue. The system immediately unlocked every memory related to her. He was shocked to remember that Mao Chu Yue had been his college classmate. They were incredibly close, often ate together, and he even used to feed her himself. They had walked hand in hand and shared happy days they believed would last forever. But an irreparable misunderstanding tore them apart. He could still clearly remember Mao Chu Yu crying as she turned away, while he desperately begged her to believe him. After the breakup, Ling Hu Hong threw himself into chasing Xiao Churan like a hopeless romantic, sacrificing everything only to be met with cold indifference. Ironically, Mao Chu Yu witnessed it all, pushing them even farther apart. Back in the present, Mao Chu Yu curled her lips into a faint smile. She teased that they had not been apart for long, yet he had already forgotten her, or perhaps he was simply too busy to remember his ex. Ling Hu Hong awkwardly adjusted his tie and quickly denied it. But the moment he glanced at her, he secretly admitted that his ex was still unbelievably beautiful. Losing someone like her, because he failed to cherish her, was pure stupidity. The instant Mao Chu Yu heard those thoughts, her eyes widened in shock. She looked around in confusion, because only she and Ling Hu Hong were standing there. So where had that voice just come from? When she turned back to ask, she realized Ling Hu Hong had already disappeared. He had run over to chat with a blonde young man beside a luxury car, pretending to ask about its price. He looked completely relaxed, but inside he kept complaining that another heroine had appeared, making the situation even more dangerous. Mao Chu Yu immediately realized something was wrong. Even though Ling Hu Hong was standing far away, those words still echoed in her ears as clearly as if he were beside her. Meanwhile, Ling Hu Hong even offered the blonde man a cigarette to keep up the act. Yet inside his head, he kept lamenting that no matter how beautiful Mao Chu Yue was, the male lead would eventually steal her away. He even grumbled that the male lead seemed to have no hobby besides stealing other people's girlfriends, and now he would not even spare his ex. It was completely ridiculous. Hearing every single thought, Mao Chu Yu trembled with anger. She immediately marched over, pointed straight at Ling Hu Hong, and demanded an explanation for what he had just said. Ling Hu Hong looked completely confused, and insisted he had not spoken a single word. But Mao Chu Yu blushed and accused him of refusing to admit it, then sarcastically congratulated him for finally winning Xiao Churan after all these years. Ling Hu Hong froze on the spot. Deep down, he immediately argued that he had never been obsessed with Xiao Churan and had absolutely no desire to marry her. Even though frustration twisted his face, all he could do was clench his fists. As Mao Chu Yu quietly watched his confused expression, she heard another thought. In his heart, Xiao Churan could never compare to her. That left her completely stunned. Mao Chuyue slowly formed a theory. Ling Huhang probably had no idea she could hear his inner thoughts, and those honest thoughts placed her far above Xiao Churan. After calming herself, Mao Chuyu looked him in the eye and asked why he always seemed unhappy whenever Xiao Churan was mentioned. Did he really not want to marry her? Ling Huhang could only sigh helplessly and admit that it was hard to explain, but in short, that marriage was nothing less than a living grave. Mao Chuyu blushed slightly and softly asked if he was still hopelessly chasing Xiao Churan. The question hit Ling Huhang like an explosion. He quickly denied it and insisted he had been forced into it because no sane man would willingly chase her. He even blamed Xiao Churan for making Zhang Beishuan hate him to the core. In his mind, he kicked her aside, told her to get lost, and cursed this ridiculous plot. Those honest thoughts made Mao Chuyu burst into laughter. Ling Huhang was left completely confused and had no idea why she looked so happy. Before he could react, Mao Chuyu stepped closer, gently placed a hand on his chest, and softly called his name. She quietly told him she already knew the truth behind the old misunderstanding, and none of it had ever been his fault. As she spoke, her hand slowly brushed across his chest. The distance between them kept shrinking until Ling Huhang blushed so hard he almost got a nosebleed. Deep down, he screamed that he wanted to turn back because Mao Chuyu was far better than Xiao Churan. Overwhelmed, he placed a hand on her shoulder and silently thanked heaven for finally giving him a chance. Just as the tension reached its peak, another car pulled in and stopped. The person stepping out was Xiao Churan, and the first thing she saw was Ling Huhang standing close to Mao Chuyue. Seeing them so intimate, her anger exploded, and her eyes looked ready to devour them both. Unable to stay calm, Xiao Churan immediately shouted Ling Huhang's name. The sight before her made her face burn with anger, and her gaze seemed ready to set everything on fire. She gritted her teeth and called his name again, barely stopping herself from pulling them apart on the spot. Meanwhile, Mao Chuyue deliberately wrapped herself around Ling Huhang's arm, clearly trying to provoke Xiao Churan even more. After a few seconds of losing control, Xiao Churan quickly calmed herself and reminded herself that she was the young lady of the Xiao family and could not embarrass herself. With that thought, she completely changed her attitude, hugged Ling Huhang's arm, and sweetly complained that she had been searching everywhere for him. The sudden change left both Ling Huhang and Mao Chushu stunned, and he could only ask if something was wrong with her. Even so, Xiao Churan refused to back down. She copied exactly what Mao Chuyu had done, leaned against Ling Huhang, and sweetly called him her husband. She even lifted his face and gently kissed his cheek, as if declaring he belonged to her. Despite the sweet scene outside, Ling Huhang's mind was filled with nothing but question marks. He could only sigh that Xiao Churan changed so fast, no one could ever predict her. Watching everything unfold, Mao Chuyu simply smiled with quiet contempt, completely unfazed by the display. Before Ling Huhang could recover, Mao Chuyo gently said she would see him at the banquet. Before leaving, she reminded him that her phone number had never changed. Her charming smile and obvious provocation left Xiao Churan fuming in silence. After Mao Chuyue disappeared from sight, Xiao Churan immediately pinched Ling Huhang so hard that he winced in pain. She scolded him for getting close to another woman, despite already being engaged. Ling Huhang finally lost his patience and told her to stop acting because there was no audience here. He made it clear that he had never wanted this marriage from the beginning. Xiao Churan froze for a moment and quietly asked if he had really changed his mind. As she spoke, she grabbed the edge of his shirt with a hurt expression and reminded him that their engagement had already been announced publicly, so it could not simply be cancelled. But Ling Huhang firmly pulled his hand away and told her she would be better off finding someone she truly loved. Xiao Churan immediately blushed and stubbornly replied that the man she had chosen was her one true love. While the two were still arguing, Zhang Beishuan watched everything from behind. Seeing Xiao Churan blushing while trying to keep Ling Huhang close, he instantly came to his own conclusion. In his eyes, Ling Huhang was a scumbag who had a fiancé yet still chased other women, while Xiao Churan was the real victim. The urge to save her from that terrible man quickly filled his mind. His fists clenched tightly, and his killing intent locked onto Ling Huhang, as if he wanted to crush him on the spot. He vowed to ruin Ling Huhang completely, so Xiao Churan would finally see his true colors. It was clear his thinking was far from normal. After entering the banquet hall, Xiao Churan still clung tightly to Ling Huhang's arm, while he kept trying to pull away and reminded her not to cause more misunderstandings. He gently explained that she was only struggling to let go, which was why she acted that way. Hearing that only made Xiao Churan feel more hurt, and she asked why they should be embarrassed when they were already engaged. Ling Huhang could only sigh. Deep down, he had already started thinking about finding a way to cancel the engagement. He knew that staying close to Xiao Churan would only make Zhang Beishuan misunderstand even more, so he had to keep his distance. When Ling Huhang caught Xiao Churan's icy stare, a chill ran through his entire body. He forced an awkward smile, made up an excuse that someone was looking for him, then quickly turned around and left. Left alone, Xiao Qiran quietly stood there, as loneliness and sadness filled her heart. Hugging her own arm, she wondered if he truly hated her that much. After getting away from Xiao Qiran, Ling Huhong unexpectedly ran into her father, who was walking with a kind-looking old man with silver hair. The moment he saw Ling Huhong, Elder Xiao laughed loudly and called him his future son-in-law. Ling Huhong quickly stopped, greeted him politely while catching his breath, and Elder Xiao happily said he had been looking for him and even prepared a special gift. Elder Xiao then introduced the old man beside him as the famous physician Shangguan, whom he had worked hard to invite. The divine Dr. Shangguan adjusted his glasses and politely greeted Ling Huhong first. Before Ling Huhong could understand what was happening, Elder Xiao leaned over and whispered that he should take the divine Dr. Shangguan to treat Elder Tan later. According to Elder Xiao's plan, even if the treatment failed, it would still show their sincerity. If it succeeded, the Tan family would surely support them, and the Tan, Xiao, and Ling Hu families would become an incredibly powerful alliance. Hearing that plan left Ling Huhong frozen in place and covered in cold sweat. Trembling, he pointed at the confident divine Dr. Shangguan and stammered, asking if he had heard correctly. Was this man really surnamed Shangguan, and truly that legendary physician? In the end, he could not hold back his shock and blurted it out in disbelief. At that moment, the system appeared and revealed the original storyline. In the original plot, Ho Qiang had also brought a physician surnamed Shangguan. Ling Huhong would take him to Elder Tan, but before he could do anything, Zhang Beishuan accused him of bringing a fake doctor to harm the patient. In the end, Zhang Beishuan became the hero, earned endless praise from Elder Tan, while the divine Dr. Shangguan could only kneel in helpless defeat. Remembering that scene, Ling Huhong's face immediately turned pale. He had deliberately sent Ho Qiang far away to avoid this situation, yet the divine Dr. Shangguan still appeared as if fate refused to change. This plot was unbelievably stubborn. No matter how much he changed, the key events always returned to their original path. The more he thought about it, the worse his headache became. He rubbed between his brows, remembering that Ho Qiang had been gone for a long time, yet nothing had changed. Seeing him standing there in a daze, Elder Xiao lightly patted his shoulder, snapped him back to reality, and urged him to bring the divine Dr. Shangguan inside. Hearing that, Ling Huhong immediately chose to run. He clutched his stomach, pretended to be in severe pain, and frantically claimed he needed the restroom. The moment he finished speaking, he disappeared, only asking Elder Xiao to look after the divine Dr. Shangguan for a while. Before Elder Xiao could stop him, he was already gone. After reaching the banquet balcony, Ling Huhong held a glass of wine, gently swirled it, and let out a weary sigh. He could only mutter that everything was becoming more unbelievable by the minute. Just then, a soft hand suddenly rested on his shoulder, making him turn around in surprise. It was Mao Chu Yue. She calmly walked over, leaned against the wall beside him, and quietly asked if he was worried about Xiao Qiran because she had witnessed everything. As they talked, her hand slowly slid toward him, with obvious intent. Ling Huhong immediately caught her hand, remembering that in the original story, Mao Chu Yue would eventually become one of Zhang Beishuan's women. With a serious expression, he told her to stop and reminded her that he was already engaged. After being rejected, Mao Chuyu paused for a moment, then blushed and asked what being engaged mattered since engagements could still be broken. Faced with her charm, Ling Huhong's heart began racing. Even though he was tempted, he treated it as a test of his own self-control. He quickly turned his face away to avoid looking at her, but his mind was flooded with thoughts that were impossible to suppress. What surprised him most was that Mao Chuyu seemed to notice his hesitation, making her even more eager to test his reaction. She placed both hands on Ling Huhong's shoulders, leaned even closer, and smiled as she asked who mattered more to him, Xiao Qiran or her. Ling Huhong avoided her gaze. His face turned bright red, but he firmly replied that Xiao Qiran was his fiancée, while Mao Chuyue was just an outsider. Even though he said that, he was already at his limit inside. Seeing his reaction only amused Mao Chuyue even more. Watching him grow so flustered that he barely knew where to look, she stepped even closer, lightly touched his arm, and teasingly asked what kind of friend an outsider could become. Ling Huhong hurriedly told her to keep her distance, but deep down he had to admit that Mao Chuyue's charm made it incredibly hard to stay calm. Embarrassed and frustrated beyond words, Ling Huhong lightly punched his own chest. His nosebleed still would not stop, and his entire face was burning red. Mao Chuyu laughed in delight at the sight. To her, his words were firm, but his body betrayed everything, and the thoughts in his head only made her laugh harder. Just as Ling Huhong turned to argue back, his eyes suddenly caught a familiar face. Zhang Beishuan had arrived. Ling Huhong's spine instantly went cold, and sweat poured down his back. He quickly pushed Mao Chuyu away, and firmly declared that as long as his engagement existed, they would always remain strangers. Inside, however, it hurt to push such a beautiful woman away. He could only wonder how Zhang Beishuan handled situations like this, because he felt he would lose his mind if it continued. He mocked his own fate as nothing more than a supporting character who could only look but never touch. Realizing the protagonist was nearby, he reminded himself that staying alive came first. Ironically, his conflicted expression made Mao Chuyu laugh until tears filled her eyes. Wiping them away, she blushed and admitted that Ling Hu Hong was unbelievably adorable. Ling Hu Hong was completely speechless. He had tried so hard to look serious, yet she could not stop laughing. The more embarrassed he became, the more entertained she was. Deep down, Ling Hu Hong sighed that the heroines in this world never seemed to take any man seriously except the protagonist. Seeing Mao Chuyu still laughing uncontrollably, he gritted his teeth and asked if he was really that funny. Holding back another laugh, Mao Chuyu replied that every time she remembered his expression, she simply could not help herself. Ling Hu Hong realized the plot would only drift further off course if this continued, so he decided to end it. He slipped both hands into his pockets and walked away with a cold expression, promising himself to stay far away from every dangerous character tonight, especially Mao Chu-yue and the divine Dr. Shangguan. As soon as he returned to the banquet hall, he already had a plan. If anyone forced him to escort the divine Dr. Shangguan later, he would fake another stomachache and run. Losing face was better than losing his life. But the moment he turned around, he froze when he saw Mao Chu-yu sitting on the floor. She looked at him pitifully and said she had twisted her ankle. Ling Hu Hong stared at her helplessly. He truly could not understand how anyone could fall on such a perfectly flat floor. But what worried him even more than her act was that Jiang Beishuan had witnessed the entire scene. Mao Chuyu kept reaching out toward him, acting spoiled, as she claimed she could not stand up by herself and wanted him to help her. On the outside, she looked weak and helpless. Inside, however, she secretly decided that if Ling Hu Hong no longer cared about Xiao Qiran, she would make him fall for her instead. Unfortunately, Ling Hu Hong did not fall for it. He stayed where he was, and calmly said that if she chose to wear high heels and fell, she could only blame herself. After saying that, he turned around and walked away, leaving Mao Chuyu sitting there in stunned silence. However, after only a few steps, he realized this was a bad idea. He could not get too close to her, but he also could not afford to upset her. If Mao Chu-yue got angry and complained to Jiang Beishuan, the protagonist would definitely stand up for her. At that point, his tiny chance of staying alive would probably disappear. While he was still hesitating, Mao Chuyu seemed to see right through his weakness. She immediately warned that if he refused to come back and help her, she would get angry, and when she got angry, the consequences would be serious. Hearing that, Ling Hu Hong's expression changed instantly. He hurried back, tried to calm her down, quickly helped her to her feet, and repeatedly begged her not to be angry. Outwardly, he gently reminded her to be careful. Inside, he desperately prayed that she would stop leaning against him because she belonged on Jiang Beishuan's side of the story. Mao Chuyu secretly smiled in satisfaction, seeing this as only the beginning. She deliberately fell into Ling Hu Hong's arms, creating the image of an intimate couple, while inwardly refusing to accept being treated as just another member of Jiang Beishuan's harem. Ling Hu Hong forced himself to stay calm, and asked if she could still walk, or if he should call a doctor. Mao Chuyu kept up the act and weakly said she could not even stand. She took his hand, placed it on her waist, and sweetly asked him to carry her since he had already touched her anyway. Ling Hu Hong instantly blushed, and his nose almost started bleeding again. He could only complain inside because her move was way too much. Right as the two ended up in an awkward pose, Jiang Beishuan saw everything from start to finish. He walked over at once, grabbed Ling Hu Hong by the shoulder, and coldly ordered him to let Mao Chu-yue go. Ling Hu Hong froze like he had met his worst enemy, and nervously called out Jiang Beishuan's name. Without hearing a single explanation, Jiang Beishuan pulled Mao Chuyu behind him and loudly called Ling Hu Hong a shameless creep. Mao Chuyu was still confused, but he acted like a hero and told her to stay behind him. She frowned and asked who the man in front of her even was. Jiang Beishuan ignored her question and accused Ling Hu Hong of getting Xiao Qiran engaged while flirting with another innocent girl. Hearing those ridiculous accusations, Ling Hu Hong was completely speechless and wondered what he had done wrong. Jiang Beishuan's shouting echoed across the hall, making every guest turn toward the balcony. He openly called Ling Hu Hong shameless for getting engaged, while still chasing other women. As the scene grew louder, Mao Chuyu quickly begged them to stop. But Jiang Beishuan only got more fired up and declared this was not an argument because he alone was exposing Ling Hu Hong. He swept his coat aside with great flair and loudly declared that Xiao Qiran needed to see Ling Hu Hong's true colors. Just as the tension reached its peak, a tall man with a buzz cut and a long scar beside his eye stepped out of the crowd. He pushed two guests aside, coldly demanded an explanation, and asked what these people had to do with his younger sister. The newcomer was Mao Xiaojun, the young heir of the Mao group. The moment Ling Hu Hong saw him, he remembered the entire story. To outsiders, Mao Xiaojun and Jiang Beishuan looked like bitter rivals, but they were secretly on the same side. In the original story, Mao Xiaojun and Mao Chu-yue represented two competing branches of the Mao family that had long fought over the inheritance. Before that battle officially began, Mao Xiaojun secretly joined forces with Jiang Beishuan. Together, they planned to lure Mao Chu-yu's branch into pouring billions of dollars into the Mars photovoltaic bubble project. On the surface, Jiang Beishuan insisted the project would definitely fail, destroying Mao Chu-yu's faction and handing control to Mao Xiaojun. But that was only part of the plan. Once the Mao family fell into crisis, Jiang Beishuan would appear as the savior, win Mao Chu-yu's trust, and eventually take both her and the family's fortune. Thinking about those two calmly enjoying mountains of wealth, while Mao Chu-yu became another woman in Jiang Beishuan's harem, Ling Hu-hang could only curse them for being two unbelievably cunning foxes. To his surprise, Mao Chu-yu heard every one of those thoughts. She was stunned to learn that the brother she had always trusted was secretly working with an outsider against both her and the family. Meanwhile, Mao Xiaojun gently helped his sister to her feet and kept asking if she was all right with a caring smile. But the more caring he looked, the colder Mao Chu-yu felt inside. She suddenly remembered her father's words about the Mars photovoltaic project and realized her family had indeed invested in it. Knowing she could not expose anything yet, she pretended to know nothing and calmly said she was only a little dizzy and would be fine after some rest. Even so, her mind kept racing without pause. What puzzled her most was why Ling Hu-hang, who had never cared about business or investing, knew this conspiracy so well. The more she thought about it, the more she believed Ling Hu-hang had been quietly watching over and caring for her all along. That thought made Mao Chu-yu blush, and she unconsciously gripped her wine glass so tightly that red wine splashed out. Meanwhile, Jiang Beishuan kept making things difficult for Ling Hu-hang. He grabbed Ling Hu-hang's arm, shouted for him to leave immediately, and insisted he had personally witnessed him bullying Mao Chu-yu. The moment she heard that, Mao Chu-yu immediately stepped in to stop him. Ling Hu-hang had never bullied her. Instead, he helped her up after she stumbled and treated her with perfect manners. She ordered Mao Xiaojun to let Ling Hu-hang go. Jiang Beishuan still refused to back down, and Mao Chu-yu finally lost her temper. She pulled Ling Hu-hang to her side and coldly pointed at Jiang Beishuan, reminding him that he was only a bodyguard with no right to cause trouble here. Even Ling Hu-hang was stunned by her sudden defense. Jiang Beishuan's face instantly turned dark, and his icy glare sent chills down even Ling Hu-hang's spine. He could only sigh, because he knew people like Jiang Beishuan always settled their grudges sooner or later. Just then, Mao Chu-yu leaned close and softly whispered that her leg still hurt and asked him to help her somewhere quiet to rest. Ling Hu-hang immediately shook his head, wanting nothing more than to stay away from trouble and keep himself alive. Seeing him refuse, Mao Chu-yu pinched him and warned that if he kept saying no, she would scream and accuse him of harassing her. With no way out, Ling Hu-hang reluctantly agreed and silently complained that she was far too good at forcing people into a corner. Mao Chu-yu smiled in satisfaction and pulled him away. Before leaving, she gave Mao Xiaojun a cold look and declared that once the truth came out, she would settle this debt with her own brother. Those words left Mao Xiaojun frozen, as a bad feeling told him his secret might soon be exposed. The reception room was now completely empty. Ling Hu-hang carefully helped Mao Chu-yu onto a chair and politely told her to rest. He sat down on the floor, but all he could think about was escaping. He planned to run the moment he reached the door, but Mao Chu-yu saw right through him. She glanced at him and quietly decided she would never let him slip away. A moment later, Mao Chu-yu softly complained that her leg still ached and asked him to give it a massage. Seeing her long, slender legs, Ling Hu-hang immediately blushed and awkwardly refused. But Mao Chu-yu calmly lifted the edge of her dress a little, making him even more flustered. He could only groan inside, because if Jiang Beishuan found out, he would definitely become his sworn enemy. Ignoring his hesitation, Mao Chu-yu gently placed her leg on his lap and quietly said this was all she wanted him to do. She warned him again that if he still refused, she would immediately accuse him of being inappropriate. Ling Hu-hang could only fall silent, because he knew he would be the one to suffer no matter what. Without another word, Mao Chu-yu raised 3 fingers and started counting down. She counted from 3 to 2, but Ling Hu-hang still did not move. Just as she was about to say the final number and call for help, he finally gave up and hurriedly agreed to massage her leg. He removed her high heels and gently massaged her ankle and calf. The instant he touched her, Mao Chu-yu's leg trembled slightly. Her cheeks quickly turned bright red. Ling Hu-hang kept massaging by instinct and casually asked if the pressure felt right. Mao Chu-yu shyly replied that it was perfect. The atmosphere between them instantly became awkward. Ling Hu-hang's hand unconsciously kept moving higher. Seeing that, Mao Chu-yu quickly told him not to move his hand any farther. Still focused on the massage, he innocently asked if she wanted him to massage the inner side as well. That question made Mao Chu-yu blush even harder, and she immediately stopped him. After relaxing for a while, Mao Chu-yu leaned back in her chair, her body trembling slightly as she kept praising Ling Hu-hang's skillful hands. He tried to stay calm, but his nose had started bleeding without him noticing, leaving him wondering how things had become so strange. Night soon fell. In a quiet corner of the small garden, the streetlights shone through the trees and created a peaceful scene. Zhang Beishuan struck a match and politely lit Mao Xiaojun's cigarette as a gesture of goodwill. He then sighed and admitted that Mao Chuye seemed to be siding with Ling Hu Hong and drifting away from him, so he wanted to know what they should do next. Mao Xiaojun took a slow drag from his cigarette and calmly asked if Zhang Beishuan had truly fallen for his younger sister. He went on to explain that Mao Chuye admired powerful men. As long as Zhang Beishuan proved himself strong enough to win her over, she would eventually choose him willingly. He finished by patting him on the shoulder. Even so, Zhang Beishuan remained uneasy. He said Mao Chuye and Ling Ho Hong seemed unusually close, making him suspect they had shared a special relationship long ago. They really did know each other, but that was all in the past. Now Ling Hu Hong was already engaged, so at most they would just catch up on old times. After saying that, he tossed the cigarette to the ground, crushed it under his foot, and said he was going to the restroom for a moment before coming back. The moment Mao Xiaojun disappeared, Zhang Beishuan's expression changed, and he quietly clenched his teeth. In his icy gaze, only one thought remained. Sooner or later, every woman around Ling Hu Hong would belong to him. Just as Zhang Beishuan was lost in those thoughts, someone suddenly greeted him from behind. The newcomers were Xiao Suran and her father, Xiao Dazhuang. Elder Xiao happily introduced Zhang Beishuan as the miracle doctor invited by his future son-in-law and hoped Elder Tan would mentor and recommend him. Hearing that, Zhang Beishuan curled his lips into a calculating smile. In his mind, the chance to wipe out the Xiao, Mao, and Ling Hu families had finally arrived. While the banquet was still lively, a sudden cry of panic shocked everyone. News that Elder Tan had suddenly collapsed instantly emptied the hall as every guest rushed to the resting room. Inside, the silver-haired Elder Tan lay unconscious on the bed. A woman cried silently, while a middle-aged man and a thin elder kept calling for him to wake up and urged the servants to bring the medicine quickly. Before long, Ling Hu Hong, Mao Chuyue, Xiao Dazhuang, and Shangguan Divine Doctor also arrived. Elder Xiao quietly told Ling Hu Hong that Elder Tan's condition was getting worse, then said they should let Shangguan Divine Doctor examine him and see how confident the miracle doctor really was. Shangguan Divine Doctor gently adjusted his glasses. He smiled with complete confidence and declared that one pulse check was all he needed to find the cure. He was completely certain. Unlike that confidence, Zhang Beishuan only glanced over and secretly sneered. In his eyes, this so-called miracle doctor was nothing more than a fraud, and Ling Hu Hong was about to face serious trouble. Just then, Elder Tan slowly opened his eyes. His middle-aged son quickly helped him sit up and choked back tears as he explained that the family had invited countless famous doctors, yet nothing worked, and even the medicine was losing its effect. He then bowed to everyone present and sincerely begged that whoever could save his father would earn the eternal gratitude of the Tan family. Standing behind him, Mao Xiaojun quietly asked Zhang Beishuan how confident he was if he stepped in. On the outside, Zhang Beishuan remained calm and humble, but inside he looked down on Mao Xiaojun for being so desperate to win the Tan family's favor. He quickly figured that with the Tan family's backing, Mao Xiaojun could easily become the head of the Mao family, while he himself could also enter the upper class. With that in mind, Zhang Beishuan calmly replied that without checking the pulse, he could not be certain, but judging from the symptoms alone, he was already more than 50% confident. Hearing that, Mao Xiaojun was thrilled. He patted Zhang Beishuan on the shoulder and promised him a generous reward if he saved Elder Tan. Zhang Beishuan smiled on the surface but secretly treated Mao Xiaojun like a fool. Even so, he still had value, so Zhang Beishuan kept pretending to cooperate. Mao Xiaojun immediately brought Zhang Beishuan to the bedside and urged him to check Elder Tan's pulse. But Zhang Beishuan raised a hand to stop him. Mao Xiaojun stared in confusion and asked what he was waiting for. Zhang Beishuan calmly explained that if he wanted to build his reputation, someone had to serve as a comparison. If he cured the patient now, no one would see the gap in skill, so it was better to let Shangguan Divine Doctor try first. Even after hearing that, Mao Xiaojun still could not hide his concern. He was afraid the famous miracle doctor might actually cure the illness. Zhang Beishuan simply smiled with confidence and declared that Shangguan Divine Doctor would definitely fail. Once everyone else ran out of options, he would step in and save the patient, making his reputation even greater. After hearing the whole plan, Mao Xiaojun immediately nodded in agreement. He even praised Zhang Beishuan for thinking several steps ahead before walking forward. Mao Xiaojun introduced Shangguan Divine Doctor to the Tan family. He also suggested letting the miracle doctor examine the patient first. The middle-aged man was overjoyed. He repeatedly thanked Xiao Dazhuang and Shangguan Divine Doctor before earnestly asking them to save his father. Shangguan Divine Doctor calmly stepped forward and prepared to check the pulse. Standing behind him, Xiao Dazhuang gave a light cough, as if quietly reminding him of something. Shangguan Divine Doctor turned around. The two exchanged only a glance, yet they seemed to understand each other perfectly. Meanwhile, Ling Hu Hong stood beside them, breaking into a cold sweat. He silently complained that everything had already been arranged, so why were they still looking at him? Xiao Dazhuang stepped forward and held Elder Tan's hand. he solemnly introduced Shangguan Divine Doctor as the 18th generation successor of the Wang imperial physicians, praising him as the modern Hua Tuo, who could surely cure this illness. Hearing Xiao Dazhuang praise him so shamelessly, Ling Hu Hong nearly burst into tears. He silently prayed everything would stay under control, because if anything went wrong, he would be the one paying the price. At that moment, Shangguan Divine Doctor officially began checking Elder Tan's pulse. After stroking his beard for a while, he slowly declared that the illness was still curable. Those words instantly gave Elder Tan's son new hope. Shangguan Divine Doctor explained that years of illness had blocked the meridians, allowing toxic energy to gather around the heart and liver. According to him, a single needle from the Wang family's heavenly heart, 9 heavens divine needle technique, would solve everything. Watching the scene, Zhang Beishuan simply sneered. In his eyes, the heavenly heart 9 heavens divine needle was nothing compared to his own heavenly blossom spirit-gathering divine needle. He believed Shangguan Divine Doctor would lose all his fame with the final needle, and Ling Hu Hong would be dragged down as well. Just before placing the decisive needle, Shangguan Divine Doctor suddenly called Ling Hu Hang over to assist him. Hearing his name, Ling Hu Hong froze, pointed at himself, and quickly waved his hands. He repeatedly insisted that he had never studied medicine and could not help at all. Inside, Ling Hu Hong could only complain. Treating patients was the doctor's job, and dragging him in would only bring trouble. If something went wrong, he would end up taking the blame. But Shangguan Divine Doctor only smiled and said Ling Hu Hong was being far too modest. He even claimed he had long heard that the young master had displayed extraordinary medical talent since childhood. Shangguan Divine Doctor recalled that during their last meeting, Ling Hu Hong had only pressed a few acupoints, yet the shoulder pain that had bothered him for years disappeared. Hearing such an obvious performance, Ling Hu Hong was left speechless. He could only think that the villains were not even trying to hide their teamwork anymore. Without giving him another chance to refuse, Shangguan Divine Doctor immediately began the needle technique, while Ling Hu Hong instinctively analyzed every move in his head. Based on the symptoms of headaches spreading to the neck and sensitivity to cold wind, he concluded that the Jian acupoint should be used first to disperse the cold wind affecting the Taiyang meridian. Then it should be combined with Baihui, Shenting, Benshan, Zhongguan, Neiguan, and Yongquan to restore circulation, open the meridians, and unblock the acupoints. The sequence of the needles was completely correct. Only the force behind them was still slightly lacking. Just then, Zhang Beishuan coldly mocked him. He sneered that a nobody had no right to judge medical skills. Ling Hu Hong immediately fired back, asking if Zhang Beishuan was not feeling guilty, then why could he not even look him in the eye? Hitting a sore spot, Zhang Beishuan flew into a rage and immediately demanded that young Master Tan throw this useless man out before he disturbed Elder Tan. Ling Hu Hong calmly spoke up and said the only person in the room capable of curing Elder Tan was Zhang Beishuan. If Zhang Beishuan were driven out now, the last chance to save Elder Tan would disappear as well. Hearing that, Shangguan Divine Doctor angrily shouted, believing this brat actually dared to underestimate his abilities. Watching everything unfold, Ling Hu Hong thought the story was following the original plot exactly. Next would come the argument and the wager. Just as expected, Shangguan Divine Doctor immediately challenged Zhang Beishuan to a bet, and Zhang Beishuan accepted without the slightest hesitation. Shangguan Divine Doctor explained that the earlier needles were only used to restore the body's foundation. Now only the final decisive needle remained. If Elder Tan recovered after that last needle, Zhang Beishuan would have to kneel and kowtow in front of everyone. He also demanded that Ling Hu Hong kneel beside him. Suddenly dragged into the wager, Ling Hu Hong could only stare in confusion and ask what this had to do with him. Zhang Beishuan immediately agreed and proposed his own condition. If Shangguan Divine Doctor failed, then both he and Ling Hu Hong would kneel and kowtow before Zhang Beishuan. Shangguan Divine Doctor accepted without any hesitation. Caught in this completely unexpected wager, Ling Hu Hong could only sigh at his terrible luck. His thoughts immediately returned to the original story. According to the plot, Shangguan Divine Doctor was destined to fail because the Heavenly Heart 9 Heavens Divine Needle lacked its most critical step, bloodletting. After the final needle, blood had to be drawn from the Dazhui Aka point for the technique to be complete. Unfortunately, Shangguan Divine Doctor knew nothing about that secret, while Zhang Beishuan understood every detail. In the end, all of Shangguan Divine Doctor's efforts would only make Zhang Beishuan even more famous. Thinking of that, Ling Hu Hong quietly sighed. As the chosen son of destiny, Zhang Beishuan was fated to win countless beauties. Compared to that, kneeling to apologize was hardly Ling Hu Hong's biggest concern. But then another thought suddenly crossed his mind. As long as someone performed bloodletting at the Dazhui acupoint, Elder Tan could still be saved. Just stopping Zhang Beishuan from cruising through life and expanding his harem was enough for Ling Hu Hong to decide to break the original storyline. After the final needle was placed, Shangguan Divine Doctor confidently withdrew the needle and smiled, declaring that Elder Tan could now stand up. Sure enough, the moment Elder Tan sat up, he immediately felt the pressure in his chest ease and his headache fade, leaving even him surprised. Elder Tan repeatedly thanked Shangguan Divine Doctor, while everyone present praised him, saying they had just witnessed the skill of a true miracle doctor. Only Ling Hu Hong remained frozen in place, his mind full of questions. According to the original story, this was not supposed to happen. After the final needle, Elder Tan should have coughed up blood so Zhang Beishuan could step in and save the day. Instead, reality had completely changed. Before he could figure it out, Elder Tan suddenly clutched his chest and spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. The room instantly fell into chaos as his family rushed over to support him. Seeing everything unfold exactly as expected, Zhang Beishuan flashed a smug grin and loudly asked if everyone finally believed him now. He declared that Shangguan Divine Doctor was nothing but a fraud, and Elder Tan's condition was proof of trusting the wrong person. Zhang Beishuan even claimed that if he had treated Elder Tan from the beginning, none of this would have happened. He then hinted that someone had been clinging to this fake miracle doctor just to gain fame, only to end in complete failure. Right after that, Zhang Beishuan even changed the terms of the wager on his own. He said Shangguan Divine Doctor and Ling Hu Hong did not need to kneel anymore. As long as Ling Hu Hong knelt down and licked his shoes clean, the matter would be settled. As he spoke, he deliberately glanced at Xiao Saran, pretending he was only doing this to help her get revenge. According to him, Ling Hu Hong had been flirting with both his fiancée and his ex-girlfriend, so someone needed to teach him a lesson. Xiao Saran immediately rejected him with a cold expression, saying her personal matters were none of his business. Just as the atmosphere became unbearably tense, Mao Chuyu suddenly spoke up. She reminded everyone that she had once seen Shangguan Divine Doctor treat a similar case, and the final step had been bloodletting at the Dazwei acupoint. Hearing that, even Ling Hu Hong was stunned. He thought she had clearly known this all along, but had pretended otherwise. And that was not all. Another person also stepped forward as a witness. He confirmed that he had personally seen Shangguan Divine Doctor save someone using bloodletting at the Dazwei acupoint. Even Shangguan Divine Doctor was stunned, wondering when he had become famous for such a technique. Even so, he quickly regained his composure and calmly explained that coughing up blood was not necessarily a bad sign. The stagnant blood needed to be released, and once the bloodletting was completed, the patient would recover. Those words instantly changed Zhang Beishuan's expression. He never expected his perfect plan to fall apart. Shangguan Divine Doctor immediately carried out the final step of the treatment. Just a few minutes later, Elder Tan felt his entire body become light, his mind clear, and his strength fully restored. He happily stood up on the spot and declared that he had completely recovered. The entire Tan family was overjoyed. They repeatedly thanked Shangguan Divine Doctor and praised him as the modern Hua Tuo. Everyone also thanked Ling Hu Hong for bringing such a miracle doctor. Meanwhile, Shangguan Divine Doctor was still confused, unable to understand how he supposedly knew the bloodletting secret. Zhang Beishuan was completely stunned. Looking at his frozen expression, Ling Hu Hong calmly reminded him about the wager and asked if the loser was not supposed to kneel. Now that the outcome was clear, Ling Hu Hong demanded that Zhang Beishuan keep his promise and kneel before him. Faced with that demand, Zhang Beishuan only sneered and loudly declared that he would never kneel before a half-baked miracle doctor or a useless man like Ling Hu Hong. Hearing those insults, Shangguan Divine Doctor immediately exploded in anger. Pointing straight at Zhang Beishuan, he shouted that he had just saved Elder Tan in front of everyone. Yet Zhang Beishuan still dared to disrespect a senior. Standing nearby, Ling Hu Hong could only sigh to himself. He just hoped they could argue all they wanted, as long as they stopped dragging him into it. Zhang Beishuan still refused to back down. He believed the Heavenly Blossom Spirit Gathering Divine Needle was the unmatched, supreme technique he had inherited, and there was no way he would bow to Shangguan Divine Doctor. Taking this chance, he decided to display his true abilities, shock everyone, and make Xiao Saran see him in a new light. Right then, every silver needle in Zhang Beishuan's hand rose into the air, leaving the entire room stunned. The guests gasped in amazement, and some even thought they were watching a magic show. But a few experts instantly recognized it as the legendary Heavenly Blossom Spirit Needle technique. The hair-thin needles floated effortlessly under the control of his inner energy. The breathtaking sight earned the admiration of nearly everyone present. Even Shangguan Shenyi admitted Zhang Beishuan had real skill. Only Ling Hu Hong stayed calm, convinced it was just another flashy stunt to avoid kneeling. But he froze when he noticed Xiao Churan and Mao Chuyue were secretly watching him instead of Zhang Beishuan. He could only laugh in disbelief, unable to understand why they cared more about him than the star of the show. Once the tension eased, Mao Xiaojun stepped in to mediate. He said Zhang Beishuan had genuine talent and only spoke out because of his disagreement with Shangguan Shenyi, hoping the senior would let it slide. Shangguan Shenyi sneered and mocked him, saying a mediator needed the status to back it up or risk becoming the next joke, forced to kneel and lick shoes. Mao Xiaojun kept smiling and replied that Shang Shenyi's treatment was not convincing to everyone either. He said they all shared the same goal of saving Old Master Tan, even if their methods were different. Just then, Old Master Tan finally spoke. He thanked everyone for coming to help him that day. Meanwhile, Ling Hohong glanced at Mao Xiaojun and silently cursed him as Zhang Beishuan's most loyal lackey. He was sure that if he had lost instead, Mao Xiaojun would have been the first to force him to kneel. On the other side, Zhang Beishuan walked straight towards Xiao Qiran. He quietly explained that he had only spoken out because he got carried away and hoped she would not take it personally. Xiao Qiran calmly replied that it had nothing to do with her, so he did not need to explain. But Zhang Beishuan refused to give up and continued speaking. He said he was only an ordinary bodyguard for now, but that would change. He believed his abilities would one day give her a life of wealth. He insisted everything he had done today was to prove himself before her and become strong enough to give her a better future. Hearing that, Xiao Qiran really did hesitate for a moment. But then Ling Huhong's earlier words suddenly echoed in her mind. She realized those sweet promises might have been nothing more than Zhang Beishuan's usual charm. The more she thought about it, the more she believed she would have fallen for every word, without Ling Huhong's warning. While Zhang Beishuan believed Xiao Qiran had already forgiven him, Ling Huhong calmly reminded himself that he was only someone who had transmigrated into a novel. If others wanted to join the male lead's harem, that was their choice, and he had no intention of treating Xiao Qiran as his wife just because of an engagement. Just as Zhang Beishuan nervously called her name, Xiao Qiran coldly cut him off. She reminded him that the loser of the bet had to kneel and kowtow before everyone, then looked him in the eye and asked if he really planned to break his promise in front of so many witnesses. Her words left Zhang Beishuan completely speechless. He never expected Xiao Qiran to be the one demanding that he keep his promise. Even Ling Hohong was stunned. He thought she would quietly let it go, but instead she pushed Zhang Beishuan into a corner. While Ling Huhong was still trying to process everything, Xiao Qiran instinctively grabbed his hand. She blushed at once and became even more convinced Ling Huhong still cared about her because he had instinctively stepped in to protect her earlier. Seeing Zhang Beishuan still standing there, Xiao Qiran spoke again in a cold voice. She told him that since he had already admitted defeat, he should stop making everyone wait and fulfill his promise. But Zhang Beishuan completely misunderstood the situation. He convinced himself that Xiao Qiran was not trying to embarrass him and was actually helping him save face before the crowd. In his mind, she was simply reminding him that a real man should know how to accept defeat. Thinking that, Zhang Beishuan felt deeply moved and swore he would never let Xiao Qiran down. The male lead's misunderstanding only grew even deeper. He then turned to Ling Huhong and spoke through gritted teeth. He declared that he would kneel today for Xiao Qiran, not for Ling Huhong. The moment Zhang Beishuan actually walked toward him, Ling Huhong instantly went pale. Only one thought crossed his mind. If the male lead knelt before him, his future would be a complete disaster. Without wasting another second, he grabbed his stomach, pretended to be in agony, and shouted that he needed the restroom immediately. As soon as he finished speaking, he bolted away, while waving everyone off and telling them to keep enjoying the banquet until they met again in the restroom. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared from sight. For Ling Huhong, staying alive was always the top priority. After escaping, the system announced that Chapter 12's mission was complete and began calculating his rewards. Ling Huhong finally breathed a sigh of relief after surviving once again. The system also informed him that he would have a 3-day break before the next mission began. Ling Huhong immediately asked the system how many reward points he had earned this time. The system announced that the completed mission awarded 100 points, bringing his total to 2,333. Ling Huhong immediately complained that the reward was far too small. In his view, he constantly faced deadly dangers as the villain, yet every completed mission only paid 100 points. The system calmly explained that rewards were based on mission evaluations, and better performance would earn more points. Helpless, Ling Huhong asked how long it would take to return to his original world at this rate. The system explained that he had entered the novel after being crushed to death by a billboard in his original world, so he needed a resurrection item to come back to life. Hearing that, Ling Huhong quickly asked if his current points were enough to exchange for it. The system answered without hesitation that the resurrection item cost 888,888 points, and his current total was nowhere close. That answer completely crushed Ling Huhong. He angrily cursed the system, accusing it of mocking him on purpose when he could not even afford the item. After calming down and doing the math, his mood became even heavier. Each mission only earned around 100 points, and he had barely passed 2,000. To reach the requirement, he still had to survive more than 8,000 missions, with a 3-day break after each one. Just thinking about it felt hopeless. The more he imagined the road ahead, the more he wanted to give up. He even felt that staying dead might be easier. The system encouraged him, saying the journey was long, but better performance in future missions would bring greater rewards. Ling Hu Hong could only sigh helplessly and mutter that he was exhausted and no longer cared about coming back to life. 3 days later, at the Ling Hu family estate, Ling Hu Hong had just been teleported back when he grabbed his head in dizziness. He immediately complained, asking when the system would upgrade its teleportation service, because it made him dizzy every single time. The moment he opened his eyes, he found the entire Ling Hu family gathered around him. Every face was filled with sympathy. They kept saying Ling Hu Hong had wasted away because of love, and it was all the Su family's fault. Surrounded by people shaking him from every side, he felt so sick that he nearly threw up. Just then, the system announced that the storyline had fully synchronized and told the host to keep striving for the highest score. Ling Hu Hong instantly realized that today was the day the woman he loved was getting married. He could not help cursing under his breath. This time, he had been thrown into another ancient drama packed with chaos. According to this body's memories, the woman Ling Hu Hong had always loved was Su Haning. The Ling Hu and Su families had arranged their marriage long ago, but right before the wedding, the Su family suddenly changed their minds and decided to marry Su Haning to a poor young man named Ning Yi, and Ning Yi was the male lead of the novel. The entire Ling Hu family was furious on Ling Hu Hong's behalf, believing his sincere love had been wasted. His second uncle, Ling Hu Shang, was so angry that he wanted to lead everyone to steal the bride, mocking Ning Yi as nothing more than a poor nobody. Right away, his younger cousin Ling Hu Tian corrected him, saying they were not stealing the bride but teaching that guy a lesson. Third uncle Ling Hu Gang could only sigh. He reminded everyone that the two families had been close for years, and Ling Hu Hong and Su Haning had grown up together. It should have been a perfect match. Ling Hu Hong's father, Ling Hu Feng, coldly declared that the Su family had betrayed them first. From this day on, the Ling Hu family would cut all ties with them. Hearing that, Ling Hu Hong was immediately startled. He thought everyone was taking it too lightly. Before long, the Su family would become the top merchant guild in the Tianshuan kingdom, and Ning Yi would rise into someone's the whole world wanted to please. Trying to pressure them by cutting ties would only make them look foolish. After thinking it over, he felt it was not even worth making a big deal over. It was just his first love marrying someone else, and he simply was not the groom. Besides, in his opinion, Ning Yi was never a bad person. If the Ling Hu family kept pushing him into a corner, they would eventually face the consequences. Then he suddenly froze, after remembering he was supposed to be the villain. At that moment, the entire hall fell silent. Everyone stared at Ling Hu Hong with puzzled expressions. A chill ran down his spine as he realized he might have accidentally said something he should not have. After a few awkward seconds, Ling Hu Hong forced a smile and told everyone to calm down and sit back down. To his surprise, even his father nodded in agreement and said they should just let the matter go. He said the younger generation's relationships were not something the elders should interfere with. Childhood sweethearts sounded romantic, but it was still just an arranged marriage. In his view, it was better to sincerely wish the couple a happy life than cling to the past. Ling Hu Tian was still unconvinced and quietly asked whether his cousin truly meant it or was only pretending to be strong. Ling Hu Hong smiled and assured him he was completely serious. He was not forcing himself. He had truly let it go. After saying that, he urged everyone to return to their rooms and rest. Deep down, he just wanted the conversation to end before he accidentally exposed himself. But the moment he left the hall, everyone remaining could only stare at one another in confusion. Someone cautiously asked if they had all heard Ling Hu Hong's inner thoughts just now. The others all nodded, but they immediately agreed that this secret must never be revealed because heaven's secrets could not be disclosed. Even Ling Hu Feng was shocked to discover that the entire family seemed able to hear his son's thoughts. After returning to his room, Ling Hu Hong finally let out a sigh of relief. But the moment he lay down on the bed, something felt off. Normally, the system would keep talking after syncing the storyline, but today it was strangely silent. He kept calling out to it, from system to A Tong, and even Brother Tong. All he got in return was complete silence. That only made Ling Hu Hong feel even more uneasy. At Ling Hu Tian's courtyard, Qin Yuiyu kept urging her son because his tutor had been waiting in the study for a long time. Ling Hu Tian immediately complained and begged his mother to stop forcing him to study. In his opinion, only poor people needed books to change their fate. As the second young master of the Ling Hu family, he had been born above most people and saw no reason to waste time reading. Qin Yuiyu gently advised that he was growing up and should at least learn proper principles so people would not mock him later. But Ling Hu Tian shook his head again and insisted he would never touch books because studying would only make him like the poor scholars he looked down on. At the same time, outside Ling Hu Hang's room, Ling Hu Tian repeatedly knocked on the door while loudly calling for his cousin to open up. Ling Hu Hong was awakened from a peaceful sleep. Annoyed, he opened the door and grumbled that waking someone up so early was no different from digging up their ancestors' graves. Ling Hu Tian laughed and replied that they shared the same ancestors anyway, so they would only be digging up their own family graves. He then hurriedly asked how his cousin could still sleep so peacefully when news of his humiliation had already spread everywhere. Ling Huhong calmly asked what people were actually saying outside. Ling Hu Tian explained that all kinds of vicious rumors were spreading. Some claimed the Su family would rather choose a poor man than marry a useless nobody like Ling Hu Hong. Others even made up stories that he only wasted his days having fun, never accomplished anything, and was ugly and too lazy to bathe. After hearing everything, Ling Hu Hong only gave a faint smile. He did not care about the rumors, but Ling Hu Tian's fate in the original story was truly miserable. In the original plot, Ling Hu Tian grew up as the pampered second young master. He looked decent, but all he knew was how to enjoy life. When the Ling Hu family finally fell, he suffered the worst ending of them all. The very scholars he once looked down on stripped him naked and threw him into a manure pit. When they pulled him back out, he was covered in mud and filth. The crowd clapped and laughed, saying it was the perfect punishment for someone who despised scholars. Just imagining that scene was enough to make Ling Hu Hong shiver. So he calmly told Ling Hu Tian to ignore the rumors, then turned around and headed back to his room for more sleep. To his surprise, Ling Hu Tian suddenly changed completely. He declared that from today on he would study hard, pass the imperial exam, become the top scholar, and return in glory so every scholar would see him differently. Ling Hu Hong could only stand there in shock. It was barely morning, yet the change was so drastic that he felt like Ling Hu Tian had become a completely different person. After closing the door, Ling Hu Hong felt that familiar sense of unease return. Even now, the system had not made a single sound or assigned a new mission. He started wondering if the system had broken down. If he stayed idle, it might count as skipping missions and deduct points. After thinking it over, he decided to follow the original storyline for now. While the family was talking, a servant rushed in to report that someone from the Su family had arrived with an invitation from the eldest young master. Before Ling Hu Hong could ask where the invitation was, the servant explained that this time it was not a household servant. A young lady from the Su family had personally come to invite him to a banquet at Zuxian Tower. The family head asked if he wanted to meet the guest. If not, they would send her away. Ling Hu Hong found it strange. If it were Su Haning, the servant would have said her name directly, so who else from the Su family would come looking for him? After failing to find an answer, he decided to go outside and see for himself. The moment he reached the front gate, he confirmed that the person waiting was not Su Haning. Facing the unfamiliar young woman, Ling Hu Hong politely cupped his hands and asked if she had personally come to invite him to Zuxian Tower, while admitting he still did not know who she was. But the moment he looked at her face more closely, he froze and blurted out in shock, "Why is it you?" Ling Hu Hong was not the only one surprised. Mao Chuyue was equally stunned and asked why he reacted so strongly before she had even said anything. She instantly concluded that he was obviously pretending not to know her. Still unable to recover, Ling Hu Hong asked again if she was really the one who had brought the invitation and invited him to Zuxian Tower. Mao Chuyu immediately replied that if it was not her, then who else could it be? Her answer only made everything feel even more unbelievable. Seeing him keep up the act, Mao Chuyu became even more suspicious. They had clearly met before, so she decided to play along with his performance. Ling Hu Hong quickly claimed he had only spoken without thinking. Mao Chuyu reminded him that they had been as close as family the last time they met, yet now he acted like a stranger. He could only laugh awkwardly and say he had been about to say the same thing. He even deliberately praised her blue dress, saying it looked better than the black outfit with gold trim she had worn during their meeting in Tanche. Hearing that he still remembered what she had worn, Mao Chuyue could not help smiling. Meanwhile, Ling Hu Hong was in complete confusion and kept calling for the system to appear. As far as he remembered, Mao Chuyu was supposed to be the heroine of Four Seas Dragon King Saves the World, so why had she suddenly appeared in this story? Seeing him continue pretending, Mao Chuyue pouted and told him to stop acting. Did he really think changing clothes would keep her from recognizing him? She even teased him by asking if he looked so dazed because he had failed to marry his childhood sweetheart, Su Haning. Ling Hu Hong hurriedly told her to lower her voice, but Mao Chuyu deliberately spoke even louder. She joked that this was his own house, so was he planning to have an affair right here? Left with no choice, Ling Hu Hong covered her mouth and gently pulled her inside. Mao Chuyu immediately struggled and pretended he was dragging her away against her will. At that exact moment, Madame Wang Ji and Ling Hu Feng happened to see the two of them pulling and holding each other in the courtyard. Madame Wang thought she must have seen it wrong, but Ling Hu Feng confirmed that they had both witnessed the same scene. Both of them were stunned to see their son acting so intimately with Mao Chuyu, who was known as Su Haning's cousin. Only then did Madame Wang learn what had happened. Ling Hu Feng flew into a rage, saying that acting so intimately in broad daylight was completely improper. Still, Madame Wang quickly calmed him down. She said Ling Hu Hong could be punished later, but Mao Chuyue was still an unmarried young lady. If they rushed out now, it would damage her reputation, so it was better to wait until she left. Just then, Xin Yueyu rushed over with shocking news, and everyone immediately turned their attention to Ling Hu Tian. She said the son who had always refused to study had suddenly asked for a teacher and declared that he wanted to study hard for the imperial exam. She worried the earlier blow to his head had somehow changed him. Hearing that, everyone hurried to Ling Hu Tian's room. He was holding a book and trying hard to read, but after reaching the line, "The way of great learning begins with," he completely forgot the next word. Xiao Taohong quietly whispered the answer. It was virtue. Seeing that scene, Ling Hu Xiang only sneered, believing someone like Ling Hu Tian had no future in studying. In his opinion, Ling Hu Tian was probably just pretending to behave so he could get more money from his mother and waste it on entertainment. Strangely enough, the rest of the family felt relieved, thinking Ling Hu Tian had not really changed after all. Meanwhile, back in Ling Hu Hong's room, he finally had the chance to question Mao Chuyue directly. What confused him most was why she had become Su Haining's cousin. Mao Chuyue gently shook her head and admitted she had no idea. During a banquet, she suddenly saw a flash of white light and lost consciousness. When she woke up, she was at Su Haning and Ning Yi's wedding as the bride's cousin, even helping Su Haning with her hair. After hearing that, Ling Hu Hong found the situation even harder to believe. The system had vanished without giving a new mission, yet someone from the previous novel had appeared in this world with a perfectly natural identity. Then Mao Chuyue questioned him instead. She wondered why he had personally gone to the gate to receive the Su family's invitation. Had he still not moved on from Su Haning? Ling Hu Hong immediately denied it, saying he was not foolish enough to ruin the male lead's wedding. That would be no different from courting death. Mao Chuyue looked even more puzzled. From what she knew in the previous novel, he always criticized Zhang Beixuan for forcing his feelings, knowing he loved Xiao Qiran, yet refusing to leave her alone. Hearing that, Ling Hu Hong suddenly froze. He immediately asked what she meant by the previous novel. Did she already know she was only a character inside a novel? Mao Chuyue calmly nodded and confirmed that was exactly the case. She said she had heard every single one of his inner thoughts. Ling Hu Hong stared at her in disbelief and asked what she meant by hearing everything. Mao Chuyue smiled and nodded again. She said none of his secret thoughts had ever escaped her. She had heard every single word clearly. Ling Hu Hong still could not believe Mao Chuyue could really read his mind. He kept telling himself she had to be bluffing. But the moment he looked at her smile, he could not help thinking she truly had the aura of a heroine. Just one smile was enough to make anyone unable to look away. Hearing those thoughts, Mao Chuyue laughed and asked if he enjoyed watching her smile that much, or if there was something else he liked too. Ling Hu Hong was instantly speechless. Only then did he fully believe she could really hear every thought in his mind. He immediately blamed the system, convinced that its endless bugs had somehow given the heroine this strange ability, while the system itself had completely disappeared. Seeing him standing there in a daze, Mao Chuyue finally spoke with a helpless smile. She asked if he had dragged her into his room in broad daylight, just so she could watch him stand there, spacing out. Ling Hu Hong hurriedly begged her to stop teasing him. Mao Chuyue immediately brought up what happened at the Tanche Inn, where he had secretly praised her for being incredibly attractive. Then she deliberately continued teasing him. If simply looking made him feel that way, did he not want to find out for himself whether it was really true? Ling Hu Hong frantically explained that back then he was only completing a mission as the Ling Hu Hong from the previous novel, not the young man who had once shared a school romance with her. Mao Chuyue only smiled after hearing his explanation. She replied that she had never really cared who he actually was. The key thing was that only the two of them were in the room, and she asked if he knew what this situation was called. Ling Hu Hong had not even answered before his mind was already screaming nonstop. He felt that if he stayed with her any longer, things would soon spiral out of control. Mao Chuyue smiled and answered for him. A man and a woman alone in a room long enough meant anything could happen. Ling Hu Hong forced himself to stay calm and reminded her that pushing jokes too far would only bring trouble. He added that she would be the one who suffered in the end. Mao Chuyue did not care at all. Instead, she told him to worry about himself first. Ling Hu Hong quickly reasoned that Mao Chuyue was only a supporting character in this world. The male lead was Ning Yi, and there was no harem, so nothing should ever happen between them. But the moment that thought appeared, Mao Chuyue read every bit of it. She laughed and teased him for always overthinking. She had expected someone impressive, but he was surprisingly innocent and could imagine all kinds of things from a normal situation. After being teased again and again, Ling Hu Hong slowly regained the upper hand. He warned that if she kept provoking him, he would stop holding back. Mao Chuyue showed no sign of backing down. She looked at him with an amused smile and challenged him to prove he could actually back up his words. Ling Hu Hong could only sigh as he looked at Mao Chuyue and admitted she really was unlike anyone else. Looking up at the sky, he realized it was getting late and everyone at Zuixian Tower would be waiting. The thought of meeting the male lead instantly made him feel exhausted, with his back aching as he wished he could stay as far away as possible. Mao Chuyue smiled knowingly and warned that if he still refused to get up, they would have to do it one more time tonight. The moment he heard that, Ling Hu Hong jumped to his feet as if struck by lightning. Before long, they arrived at Zuxian Tower. The Su family had reserved the entire Yuhu Chun room, and a servant informed them everyone had arrived and was only waiting for the two of them. As soon as Ling Hu Hong looked up and met Mao Chuyu's eyes, he could only complain inwardly. He silently begged her to stop giving him such meaningful looks, now that she was a married woman. If Ning Yi misunderstood their relationship, no explanation would ever clear things up. Inside the room were Ling Hu Feng and his wife, along with old Master Su. Su Haining's parents were also there, along with the rest of both families. The moment he entered, Ling Hu Hong apologized for arriving late. Seeing his own parents there as well, he realized this dinner was far from ordinary. Ling Hu Feng called his son over to sit down, while Ning Yi smiled warmly and said this was only a family meal, so everyone should relax. Hearing that voice, Ling Hu Hong finally took a careful look at the man before him. This was Ning Yi, the future male lead, who would dominate the business world of Zhengzhou. His entire background immediately surfaced in Ling Hu Hong's mind. 20 years ago, the Ning family had been a wealthy noble house, but a devastating fire destroyed everything and left the family in ruin. After reaching adulthood, Ning Yi was found by old Master Su, accepted as his grandson-in-law, married Su Haning, and joined the Su family. Ning Yi greeted him politely and said Su Hanxing had often mentioned that Ling Hu Hong had always cared deeply for her since childhood and that they shared a close bond. It was just unfortunate they had never met on the wedding day. Ling Hu Hong politely responded, but his thoughts wandered elsewhere. According to the story, Ning Yi was also a transmigrator from the modern world. He just did not know which era Ning Yi had come from. Ning Yi explained that many rumors had recently spread about his marriage to Su Haning. To prevent Ling Hu Hong from misunderstanding the Su family, they had arranged this dinner to clear everything up. Ling Hu Hong immediately understood. To him, this was simply a test to see if he still had feelings for Su Haning. But since Ning Yi was destined to become a powerful figure, building a good relationship now was the smartest move. He burst into laughter and openly said he had absolutely no objections. He even praised Ning Yi and Su Haning as a perfect match made for each other. He also explained that he had missed the wedding only because of a stomachache, and hoped Ning Yi would not misunderstand. Childhood sweethearts did not have to become husband and wife. He said that he and Su Haning had always been nothing more than close friends. Hearing those words, Su Haning suddenly snapped back to reality. A quiet wave of bitterness filled her heart. She could only laugh at herself, realizing she had been the only one caught up in wishful thinking. Standing nearby, Mao Chuyu was equally stunned. She quietly asked her cousin if she understood what the two men were talking about, then shook her head because she was just as confused. Right then, Ning Yi suddenly stood up. He excused himself and said he wanted to have a private chat with Ling Hu Hong. Then he invited Ling Hu Hong to step outside with him. As they walked, Ling Hu Hong sighed and said he still could not understand his fate. He had just graduated from Harvard Business School, yet he was stabbed to death during a late-night meal in an alley. Ning Yi smiled helplessly and said he completely understood that feeling. He revealed that before transmigrating, he had been excited to meet a girl he had known online for 8 months at KFC, but a billboard suddenly crashed down and killed him on the spot. After arriving in this world, Ning Yi found both of his parents gone, with no family left, and ended up as the Su family's live-in son-in-law. Ling Hu Hong admitted that he had not transmigrated normally. He had been pulled into a novel as the villain with a system, destined to become nothing more than a sacrifice for the plot. Ning Yi's eyes widened in shock. He said that sounded incredibly overpowered. Knowing the entire story was like having the ultimate cheat code. Ling Hu Hong forced a smile and replied that according to the original plot, Ning Yi would eventually wipe out his entire family. Ning Yi immediately fell silent. Seeing the silence, Ling Hu Hong hurriedly waved his hands, thinking Ning Yi was actually considering it. He said he wanted the future male lead to back him up instead. One had a cheat ability, and the other knew the plot, so working together was clearly the best choice. But another concern soon crossed his mind. He still had not committed enough evil deeds to match the original story. If he no longer fit the villain role, would the system keep working? When the system suddenly stopped responding, he became even more convinced that this was the real issue. After hearing everything, Ning Yi thought for a moment and asked if there might be another villain besides him. While their conversation was still ongoing, everyone inside the private room at Zuxian Tower grew impatient after waiting so long for them to return. Someone immediately suggested going outside to check on them. The moment they stepped out, they saw Su Haning standing face to face with Ling Hu Hong. With a cold expression, she asked what he was trying to do this time. Su Haning made it clear that although their elders had once mentioned a marriage arrangement, it had only been a verbal promise and was never officially decided. Now that she was married to Ning Yi, Ling Hu Hong's actions still made her think he had not moved on. Seeing the misunderstanding, Ning Yi quickly explained that he and Ling Hu Hong had hit it off immediately, and even felt like they should have met much earlier. Most importantly, Ling Hu Hong no longer had any romantic feelings for Su Haning. Ling Hu Hong quickly agreed and insisted it was all just a misunderstanding. Even so, Su Haning was not fully convinced. She questioned how they could become so close after talking for only 10 minutes, and even suspected Ling Hu Hong had forced Ning Yi into saying those things. Ling Hu Hong hurriedly denied it, and even raised his hand to swear an oath. He declared that he had only ever seen Su Haning as a younger sister, and had never crossed that line. If he was lying, he wished to remain alone forever, and never find peace even after death. But deep down, he quietly added that the oath only applied to the original Ling Hu Hong, not to him, the transmigrator. Only then did Su Haning finally begin to let go of her doubts. Ling Hu Hong smiled and reminded her that she had once admitted the old engagement was only their elder's idea. Now that she had found someone she truly loved, all he could do was wish them happiness. Then he casually wrapped an arm around Ning Yi's shoulder. He said they had talked at length, mostly about reminding Ning Yi to take good care of Su Haning in the future. After that, Ling Hu Hong urged everyone to return and continue the meal, finally feeling much more at ease. After all, he had successfully built a relationship with the future powerhouse, and for now he no longer had to worry about the male lead coming after him. Thinking of that, he was in high spirits as he raised his cup and enjoyed the feast. The mood at the dinner table instantly became much more relaxed. Right then, Old Master Su looked toward Ling Hu Hong. He slowly said he wanted a private word with him. With a gentle smile, he asked whether the two of them had argued or fought outside. Then he let out a helpless sigh. He admitted that none of the younger generation in the Su family could carry the family forward, so all his hopes rested on Su Haning. He had originally wanted to unite the Su and Ling Hu families, but the eldest heir like Ling Hu Hong could never become a live-in son-in-law. He believed Su Haning would lead the family to even greater success, and he hoped both families would remain close and support each other. Hearing that, Ling Hu Hong could only smile awkwardly and admire how experienced the old man really was. It was hard to believe this was the same man who had cursed the Su family the loudest just last night. In the end, the dinner wrapped up in a cheerful atmosphere. Before leaving, Ning Yi enthusiastically called out to him. He invited Ling Hu Hong to meet again in 2 days to discuss their plans, and Ling Hu Hong agreed without hesitation. Meanwhile, Mao Chuyu stood nearby, staring at him without looking away. Ling Hu Hong quietly reminded her not to be so obvious since his parents were standing right beside him. Before he even finished speaking, Madame Wang walked over, grabbed his ear, and dragged him toward the carriage, making him cry out in pain. Before Madame Wang could say anything else, Ling Hu Feng cleared his throat, cupped his hands respectfully, and asked the Great Master if he had any more guidance after today's events. Madame Wang immediately shot him a glare and said to ignore him, because he had been acting with Old Master Su for so long that he still had not broken character. But Ling Hu Feng seriously replied that it would be disrespectful to treat the Great Master carelessly. Madame Wang could only laugh helplessly and remind him this was their son, not some Great Master. Ling Hu Feng kept his mysterious expression and insisted the Great Master was only denying it because heavenly secrets could not be revealed. It seemed he truly had not snapped out of his role. After returning to the manor, Ling Hu Hong immediately called for the system over and over, but there was still no response. That made him feel something was seriously wrong. Without the system's guidance, he was like driving through complete darkness, with danger ready to strike at any moment. Just then, joyful news arrived from outside. The princess had safely given birth. Ling Hu Hong suddenly remembered that his third aunt was Princess Shenyang, and today was the day she gave birth to her daughter. The memories of the original story immediately rushed back. In the original plot, the baby girl would be secretly murdered by the midwife right after birth, making everyone believe she had died from a difficult delivery. The tragedy devastated Princess Sheng, whose health kept declining until his third uncle's concubine slowly took over as the main wife. Worse still, the baby's death caused the royal family to resent the Ling Hu family, setting off the chain of events that eventually destroyed the entire clan. The moment he remembered everything, Ling Hu Hong's expression changed. He knew he had to stop this tragedy no matter what. Fortunately, it was not too late. At that moment, the midwife was carrying the baby and preparing to leave. Deep down, she was already planning to kill the unfortunate child. Suddenly, a cold shout rang out behind her, making her freeze. Ling Hu Hong rushed over and blocked her path. He sternly demanded to know why she was secretly carrying the baby away in the middle of the night. Caught off guard, the midwife quickly made an excuse, saying the young master only knew how to enjoy himself and understood nothing about caring for a newborn. She insisted it would be dangerous to leave the baby with someone so inexperienced, so she should take the child instead. Ling Hu Hong pretended to believe her and nodded as though he had realized he was mistaken. Thinking he had fallen for her lie, the midwife became even more smug. She claimed the baby had not cried once since birth and probably would not survive. Secretly, she hoped the child would die in Ling Hu Hang's arms, so all the blame would fall on him. Even so, Ling Hu Hong calmly took the baby and said that as the older brother, even if the child could not be saved, the baby deserved one last chance to see the family. As he spoke, he gently looked down at the newborn. He kept encouraging the baby to cry. He silently recalled newborn rescue scenes he had seen in movies, hoping they might actually help. The midwife grew increasingly anxious and silently cursed him for being such a strange fool. In her mind, if the baby died now, all the responsibility would belong to Linghu Hong and have nothing to do with her. Luckily, all the tricks he picked up from old movies finally paid off. Soon after, Linghu Hong rushed into Princess Shenyang's delivery room with the baby in his arms. The servants immediately tried to stop him since the young master had no right to barge inside. He shouted that he was bringing the child back to its real mother. Everyone thought he had lost his mind because the princess had just lost her baby, and bringing another child inside would only make her suffer more. But Linghu Hong ignored them all. He pushed everyone aside and walked straight into the room. At that moment, Linghu Gang was comforting his wife. He told her they were still young and could have another child in the future. Linghu Hong cut him off and asked who had decided the baby was dead. The entire room fell silent. Linghu Gang frowned and demanded to know what he was doing, asking if he could not see the princess was suffering. Even Madame Wang could not understand what Linghu Hong was trying to do. He accused everyone of trusting a random midwife and declaring the baby dead. He even blamed Princess Shenyang for losing her judgment in panic. As soon as he finished speaking, he held the baby up for everyone to see. Right then, the baby suddenly burst into loud cries. Everyone stood frozen in shock. Princess Shenyang immediately hugged her daughter and cried with joy after realizing she was still alive. Even Linghu Gang could not believe it because the midwife had declared the baby dead only moments earlier. Princess Shenyang immediately turned to question her husband. The midwife he had brought claimed the baby had died, yet the child was now perfectly healthy before their eyes. Only then did Linghu Gang realize he had been deceived. The more Princess Shenyang thought about it, the angrier she became. She blamed her husband for letting others take their baby while she was exhausted after childbirth, then hugged the child tightly and coldly ordered him out, refusing to let him hold the baby again. Linghu Gang could only soften his tone, promise to do whatever she wanted, then quietly leave after reminding her to take care of herself and saying he would return the next morning. The moment he stepped outside, he gritted his teeth and cursed under his breath. He never expected the midwife to ruin the entire plan. At the same time, a hidden figure was reporting in Linghu Gang's study. The man said Linghu Hong's sudden interference had ruined everything. Their identity was now at risk, and Princess Shenyang had already become suspicious. At this point, they had no choice but to change their plan if they wanted to keep moving forward. Knowing the baby was safe, Linghu Hong finally relaxed and prepared to leave. After walking for a while, he suddenly heard someone reading aloud. Curious, he quietly moved closer to take a look. Inside, Linghu Tian was studying hard while second aunt, Xiao Taohong, and several servants stood nearby. Qin Yueyu brought over a bowl of white fungus soup and gently told him to take a break before continuing. Linghu Tian politely declined and said he would eat after finishing this section. Seeing that, she even told the servants to clear away some books so they could place sweets on the table. Watching the scene, Linghu Hong could only sigh to himself. He remembered that in the original story, Qin Yueyu's endless pampering turned Linghu Tian into a spoiled young master who cared only about pleasure and wasting money. But at that moment, he noticed Linghu Tian's eyes suddenly change, as if he had realized something. He finally understood that all the pampering might never have come from pure motherly love. While Linghu Hong was still surprised, Qin Yueyu noticed the dark circles under her son's eyes and urged him not to stay up late studying. Hearing that, Linghu Hong simply shook his head because the concern felt far too forced. Instead, Linghu Tian calmly asked if she knew why he had changed so much. The unexpected question made Qin Yueyu curious. She immediately told him to explain everything. Linghu Tian made up a story that he had dreamed of a god who warned that obeying his yin-yang too much would turn him into a useless playboy who squandered the family fortune and even sold his yin-yang to a brothel. After finishing, he deliberately asked if it had only been a dream and if it could never come true. Qin Yueyu instantly turned pale, hurriedly denied ever encouraging him to become a playboy, and insisted she only cared about his health. Linghu Tian nodded as if he finally understood. After that, Qin Yueyu immediately told Chunlan to clean everything up before leaving. After everyone left, Linghu Tian turned around with a grin and asked Linghu Hong what he thought of his little performance. Linghu Hong laughed and praised his progress, but he quietly wondered how Linghu Tian knew he had been watching outside. A few days later, the system finally returned. The moment he heard its voice, Linghu Hong could not hide his excitement. He immediately complained that while the system was gone, Pihan Niyi had introduced a modern clothing store to this world, and the business had exceeded all expectations. It was good news, but it still left him uneasy. According to the original story, the early villains were never a real threat, but with the system gone and the true villain still unknown, he felt even more unsettled. Just then, Princess Shenyang's voice came from outside. As soon as he stepped out, Linghu Hong was surprised to see her carrying the baby herself and asked why she had come in person. Princess Shenyang gently said that without Ling Hu Hong's help that night, both she and her daughter would have died, so she came personally to thank him. Ling Hu Hong quickly waved it off and said there was no need to be so formal. Deep down, he could not help admiring Princess Shenyang's stunning beauty. Even if she was not the greatest beauty in the land, she was certainly among the finest. He also felt it was a shame that his third uncle still kept a mistress, despite having such an incredible wife. To his surprise, every one of those thoughts reached Princess Shenyang's ears. She froze and asked if Ling Hu Gong really had another woman outside. Before Ling Hu Hong could react, Princess Shenyang was already trembling in shock. All the doubts she had been carrying suddenly fit together. She realized the midwife had likely tried to kill her baby because Ling Hu Gangling wanted to get rid of both mother and daughter for another woman. At the same time, Ling Hu Hong remembered the full plot. His third uncle and the mistress were not only targeting the baby, but also planned to destroy Princess Shenyang's health and force her out of the Ling Hu family. Even knowing the truth, he dared not tell her because the shock might be too much. Taking a deep breath, Princess Shenyang solemnly said Ling Hu Hong had given both her and her daughter a second chance at life. She would never forget this kindness and would repay him someday. After saying that, Princess Shenyang quickly left with the baby, leaving Ling Hu Hong standing there in confusion, unable to understand what he had accidentally said to change her attitude so suddenly. On the way back, Princess Shenyang called for Xiao Cui. She asked if the maid still remembered the instructions she had given the previous night. Xiao Cui immediately confirmed that she remembered everything. She would secretly follow the prince consort and report back the moment she found where he was hiding the other woman. After arranging everything, Princess Shenyang headed straight for the imperial palace. At Changning Palace, a palace maid adjusted the grand princess's hairpin while praising her elegant taste, saying Today's floral hairpiece matched her dress perfectly and made her look even more graceful. Hearing the compliment, the grand princess smiled with satisfaction. Just then, a guard came in to report that Princess Shenyang had arrived to request an audience. Meanwhile, at Ning Yi's clothing store, the moment he walked in, Ling Hu Hong told himself he had to see just how capable the male lead really was. The scene inside left him stunned. Every saleswoman greeted customers with bright smiles and warmly guided them through the store. It was hard to picture from the novel alone, but seeing it in person made him realize just how shocking this modern retail model was for this era. One saleswoman quickly picked up a new outfit and praised its elegant design, saying it perfectly suited the customer's tall and handsome appearance. The customer still hesitated because the color seemed a little too bold. The young woman smiled and reassured him that good-looking people could pull off any style, so he should try it on before deciding. Watching everything unfold, Ling Hu Hong was deeply impressed. He could not help wondering where Ning Yi had found such a skilled and persuasive team. Just then, a familiar voice came from behind. Mao Chu-yu leaned on one hand with a playful smile and asked what he was talking about. That sounded so sweet and lively. Ling Hu Hong turned around, surprised to find her there. Before he could speak, Mao Chu-yue complained that he had completely disappeared. She had told him to come find her, yet several days had passed without a single word. That was why she had no intention of letting him get away so easily today. Ling Hu Hong could only smile helplessly and ask what kind of punishment she had prepared for him this time. Mao Chu-yue raised an eyebrow and asked if he was actually scared. Ling Hu Hong laughed and admitted he was, but it was the kind of fear he welcomed. Before they could say anything else, Ning Yi came running over. The moment he saw Ling Hu Hong, he pulled him outside and said there was a great show waiting at the entrance. Ling Hu Hong jokingly asked if Ning Yi had hired an opera troupe or lion dancers. Ning Yi shook his head and pointed outside, saying someone had come to cause trouble. Ling Hu Hong was surprised. Someone actually dared to stir up trouble at the male lead's place, yet Ning Yi calmly dragged him over to watch. Outside, Su Hanning replied coldly that if she did not choose Ning Yi, was she supposed to choose Han instead? Hearing that, Murong Yu, the eldest young master of the Murong family, mocked her and claimed she was only trying to save face. He reminded her that he had once wanted to marry her but was rejected. Now she had married a poor man, who even had to sell clothes himself every day. Ling Hu Hong looked at Murong Yu and was caught off guard. The man reminded him a little of himself. He quickly realized these mocking lines originally belonged to the villain Ling Hu Hong, but after the story changed, Murong Yu had taken that role instead. Ning Yi had endured the insults aimed at himself, but the moment Murong Yu insulted Su Hanning, his expression turned icy. He only had one thought: this fool was asking for trouble. Seeing that, Ling Hu Hong quickly stopped him and said there was no need to rush. With Su Hanning's personality, Murong Yu was nowhere near her level. Sure enough, Su Hanning fired back at once and coldly asked what gave Murong Yu the right to look down on anyone if he thought Ning Yi was beneath him. In her eyes, he was nothing more than a loudmouth with an oversized ego. Hearing her response, Ling Hu Hong could only sigh in admiration. He had to admit Ning Yi's wife was incredibly sharp. A few words were enough to leave Murong Yu speechless. He was also glad he was not Today's target. But Su Hanning was not finished yet. She continued by saying she hated people like Murong Yu, who cared about nothing but romance all day. Murong Yu grew even angrier and shouted that he had only agreed to the marriage alliance out of respect for the Su and Murong families of Zhenzhou. Watching from the side, Ling Huhong became even more convinced. It seemed the story was correcting itself and returning to its original path. Since he was no longer acting as the villain, Murong Yu had been pushed into that role. Murong Yu refused to stop and kept throwing insults around. He even sneered that he did not care if Su Hanning had already been with Ning Yi, yet she still failed to appreciate his offer. That was the final straw for Ning Yi. He stepped forward at once, while Murong Yu's bodyguards rushed in to stop him. But with a single simple move, Ning Yi left Murong Yu clutching himself in pain. Holding back the pain, Murong Yu shouted and demanded to know what gave Ning Yi the right to attack him. Ning Yi calmly replied that, if he wanted to avoid suffering, he should learn to watch his mouth. Otherwise, he would make sure that mouth never opened again. In the end, Murong Yu could only grit his teeth, swear revenge, and leave in humiliation with his men. With the show over, the crowd slowly dispersed. Ling Huhong watched Murong Yu leave and thought he had brought this defeat on himself. But then another thought crossed his mind. If Murong Yu had taken over the villain's role, was he really the mastermind? Or was someone else still pulling the strings? Just then, Mao Chuyu suddenly appeared beside him, making him jump. She quietly asked if he thought Ning Yi seemed unusual. After secretly observing him for a while, she noticed his business ideas were incredibly modern, and even the move he used earlier looked exactly like modern self-defense techniques. Ling Huhong stared at her in shock and asked if she was really certain. After thinking it over, he had to admit this brother-in-law of his was absolutely flawless when it came to protecting and spoiling his wife. Mao Chuyu immediately shot him a glare, while Ling Huhong could only laugh awkwardly and admit he was blunt, unromantic, and always buried in work. Hearing that, Mao Chuyu blushed and told him to stop talking nonsense before turning around to see if anything else interesting was happening outside. Watching her walk away, Ling Huhong fell into deep thought again. Ning Yi might be a modern transmigrator, but in the end, he was still just a character created by the author. He was also just someone who transmigrated into the novel and took over a villain who already existed in the story. Mao Chuyue was the only exception. She never belonged to this world, so why did she end up here? Half a day later, Ling Huhong secretly brought Mao Chuyue inside. He kept urging her to hurry before anyone spotted them. Mao Chuyu asked why they were sneaking around, like they were doing something shady, and Ling Huhong quickly motioned for her to lower her voice. Outside, Madame Wang saw the scene and was delighted. She praised her son for seizing the chance. Even after losing the Su family marriage, he had already built ties with the Mao family. Ling Hufeng immediately disagreed. He reminded her that the Mao family was nothing like the Su family, because Mao Chuyue was Mao Shun's beloved granddaughter, and the old general had always supported the second prince. Meanwhile, the Linghu family had always backed the crown prince, so if his son got too close to the rival faction, it could easily make the crown prince suspicious. Madame Wang did not see it as a problem. She believed the crown prince was wise and broad-minded. Besides, Mao Shun's stance belonged to the older generation and should not be blamed on Mao Chuyu. Ling Hufeng could only shake his head and drop the argument. He then mentioned that Princess Shenyang had fully recovered and was preparing a own month celebration for her baby. The moment she heard that, Madame Wang snorted and declared that if Ling Hu Gang and Princess Shenyang ever fell out, she would never side with her brother-in-law. At that very moment, Princess Shenyang received news delivered by Xiao Cui. Xiao Cui reported that they had uncovered the identity of the woman the prince consort had been hiding outside. The princess forced herself to stay calm and told Xiao Cui to tell her everything because she was ready. Xiao Cui revealed that the woman had also given birth to a baby girl a few days earlier, on the exact same day as the Linghu family's daughter. The neighbors also confirmed that the prince consort had stayed with the princess the entire day, so he could not visit his mistress. Because of that, the woman flew into a furious rage. To calm her down, Linghu Gong promised that his current marriage would end soon, and he would eventually bring her into the manor as his legal wife. After hearing everything, Princess Shenyang froze in disbelief. She finally realized that the only way to make a concubine the legal wife was for the current wife to disappear. If anything had happened to her daughter that day, she would have fallen apart, and Ling Hu Gang could have easily carried out the rest of his plan. The thought that the husband she had once trusted was secretly plotting against her turned her heart cold. Thankfully, Ling Hu Hung exposed the truth before everything spiraled out of control. She would never forget that debt. Back at his residence, Ling Ho Hong led Mao Chuyu into his room, but kept hesitating without saying a word. After waiting long enough, Mao Chuyo lost her patience and turned to leave. She even felt a little disappointed because she had expected Ling Hu Hong to finally do something bold. Seeing her about to leave, Ling Hu Hong quickly stopped her and admitted he had something to ask. Mao Chuyue told him to just say it. Without wasting any more time, Ling Hu Hong asked if she had received a system or any special mission after arriving in this world. Mao Chuyu immediately denied it. She said the only thing she remembered was seeing a flash of white light before waking up here. There had been no instructions or extra information. Her answers left Ling Hu Hong even more confused, because everything had drifted far from his original theory. He then asked about Xiao Qiran, wondering why Mao Qiuyu had appeared here, while the original heroine had not. The moment she heard him mention another woman, Mao Qiuyu let out a cold snort and complained that he had been beating around the bush just to ask about someone else. Ling Hu Hong quickly explained that he was only trying to piece together the entire story, and he had never met anyone named Xiao Qiran since arriving here. The moment she heard that name, Mao Qiuyu suddenly paused. After thinking for a few seconds, she remembered that the crown prince's older sister also seemed to be named Xiao Qiran. At the same time, inside the imperial palace, someone was reporting to the Grand Princess that the person who saved Princess Shenyang and her baby was Ling Hu Hong. Hearing his name, the Grand Princess curled her lips into a meaningful smile. It seemed her meeting with Ling Hu Hong was drawing near. It would happen during the baby princess's own month celebration. The Ling Hu Manor was packed with guests. Waves of well-wishers kept arriving, and cheerful congratulations filled the air with lively excitement. The Ling Hu family's eldest sister-in-law looked around and asked Princess Shenyang why Ling Hu Gang was still nowhere to be seen, as many guests had already started wondering. The princess only gave a faint smile and said she did not care whether he was alive or dead. She only wanted to see what trick he planned to pull today. Ling Hu Gang finally rushed in just as everyone was about to take their seats. The princess immediately demanded to know where he had been. He forced a smile and claimed he had gone out to buy a gift for their daughter. That answer only made the princess even angrier, because he had not even prepared a gift for his own daughter's own month's celebration in advance. Ling Hu Gang quickly tried to recover, saying he already had a gift but wanted to find something better. As he spoke, he took out a silver lock. The princess looked at it with a cold smile and asked if her daughter was only worth an ordinary silver lock. Ling Hu Gang immediately made up an excuse, saying a silver lock was better for a fragile baby girl, while a gold one would bring bad luck. Hearing that, the princess became even angrier and demanded to know who had received the gold lock instead. Or had he already given it to the woman and child he kept hidden outside? The accusation instantly changed Ling Hu Gang's expression. The princess calmly said she already knew the whole truth. If he wanted to keep that woman and her child safe, he had better hide them well. The imperial family had its own way of dealing with such matters, and those around him might not stay safe. Ling Hu Gang burned with rage and resentment, secretly cursing the princess for humiliating him in front of everyone. Just as the tension reached its peak, a loud announcement suddenly echoed from outside that the Grand Princess had arrived. All the guests immediately stepped aside to welcome her with respect. Standing quietly in the corner, Ling Hu Hong felt his heart racing. He could only hope it was just a coincidence of names. But the moment he saw who walked in, that hope disappeared. The person before him was Xiao Qiran. Everyone noticed that the Grand Princess seemed unusually interested in Ling Hu Hong, while he could only suffer in silence. Mao Qiuye was already here, and now even Xiao Qiran had appeared. That meant Zhang Beixuan from the previous novel might also show up. Things were becoming more unpredictable by the minute. He quickly asked Mao Qiuyu if she had ever heard the name Zhang Beixuan in this world, but she simply shook her head and said she had never known anyone by that name. The Grand Princess took out an incredibly precious jade pendant and said it was a keepsake left by her late mother. She presented it to the baby princess with wishes for a lifetime of peace and good fortune. Princess Shenyang hurriedly declined because the gift was far too valuable, but the Grand Princess only smiled gently and told her to accept it without worry. Watching the scene, the guests could not help but marvel. A baby only 1 month old had already earned such favor from the Grand Princess. Her future was bound to be extraordinary. In sharp contrast to the lively celebration, Ling Hu Gang silently swallowed his anger. In his eyes, Princess Shenyang had not only embarrassed him in public, but even their newborn daughter was showered with affection. Thinking about the woman and child living outside, his heart grew even heavier. He secretly vowed that once he gained power, he would bring every good thing to them. At that very moment, a secret rumor quietly began to spread. People discovered that Prince Consort Ling Hu Gang had secretly been meeting with the second prince. The own month celebration finally came to an end. Even after leaving, the guests could not stop talking about everything that had happened. Everyone remarked that the Grand Princess rarely left the imperial palace to attend banquets. Simply seeing her today was a blessing, and her noble grace made her seem like a fairy descended to the mortal world. But Ling Hu Hong had no mind for any of that. The only thing on his mind was that Xiao Qiran had turned out to be the Crown Prince's older sister. That twist was beyond anything he had imagined. Only then did he understand why the sisters had remained silent all this time. It had already known that no matter how hard he tried to change things, the key parts of the story would always return to their original path. The Linghu family had escaped destruction by the Su family, unlike the original story, but their doomed fate had never truly changed. They still supported the crown prince, and once the second prince overthrew him, the entire family would be dragged down. The grand princess also stood on the crown prince's side. Thinking about it made Linghu Hong's scalp go numb. If he wanted to keep his family alive, he absolutely could not get too close to Xiao Qiran. He kept repeating to himself that the grand princess meant the crown prince. The crown prince meant death, and the Linghu family could never walk that path. He racked his brain for every possible solution, and even considered using lightning magic to kill the second prince. But he quickly dismissed the idea as ridiculous. Then an even crazier thought crossed his mind. If he started a rebellion first and got the second prince killed, wouldn't the Linghu family survive? Just then, someone called his name, but Linghu Hong did not hear a thing. Only one thought echoed in his mind. Forget everything else. Start the rebellion first. At least that gave him a chance to live. And what was there to fear about killing one second prince? Seeing his dazed expression, everyone around him could only shake their heads, convinced that the young master of the Linghu family had truly lost his mind. Night soon fell, and Linghu Hong prepared to rest. Even then, he was still planning how to begin his rebellion the next day, when a familiar voice suddenly came from behind him. He spun around in shock and stared wide-eyed at Xiao Qiran standing before him. He stammered that her carriage had clearly left the manor, so how was she still here? Xiao Qiran calmly replied that the carriage had left, but she had simply climbed back over the wall. Linghu Hong instantly turned pale and nervously asked if she had heard something she was not supposed to hear. Xiao Qiran smiled and asked if he meant the thoughts running through his head. She openly admitted she had heard everything, from his plan to rebel to his idea of killing the second prince. Linghu Hong could only force an awkward smile and explain that everything he did was simply to stay alive. That was the greatest wish he had. Xiao Qiran lightly tapped his forehead and called him an idiot. She said he had thought of every possible solution except her. She explained that she was now the grand princess. If the second prince truly moved against the crown prince, she would not escape either. Instead of waiting for disaster, they should work together to protect the crown prince beforehand. Linghu Hong could only laugh helplessly. He understood that logic all too well, but that was exactly why he wanted nothing to do with the bloody struggle surrounding Xiao Qiran. All he wanted was to stay alive. Xiao Qiran smiled softly and said she had only asked out of curiosity. She then stepped closer, looked him straight in the eyes, and reminded him that she was now the grand princess. If she truly wanted to marry him, all she had to do was ask the emperor for an imperial marriage decree. Could he really refuse? The moment he heard the words imperial marriage decree, Linghu Hong panicked and quickly begged Xiao Qiran to calm down. Linghu Hong patiently explained that even in the most extreme case, their relationship only belonged to their previous life inside the novel's world. Now they each had their own identities and lives, so they should not cling to the past. But the moment he finished speaking, he saw Xiao Qiran's eyes turn red, as if she were about to cry. Linghu Hong immediately apologized, admitting his words had been too harsh. Even so, he continued trying to reason with her, and pointed out their current identities. Xiao Qiran was now part of the imperial clan connected to his family, so marrying her would make their family ranks a complete mess. Xiao Qiran simply shook her head and said none of that mattered. He could address her however he liked. Seeing that he refused to change his mind, she immediately changed her tone and reminded him that she knew every thought in his head, from rebellion to murdering the second prince. She even warned him that if he kept refusing, she would ask the emperor tomorrow to order the execution of the entire Linghu family. She might not have any proof, but with the emperor's deep affection for the grand princess, a single word from her would be enough to doom the entire Linghu family. Xiao Qiran calmly added that her tears earlier were not from heartbreak. She simply felt it was a pity that a good man like Linghu Hong was about to lose his life. The moment he heard that, Linghu Hong's attitude changed completely. He forced an awkward smile and quickly corrected himself, saying their marriage was actually still open for discussion. Xiao Qiran responded with a meaningful smile. She even suggested that if he wanted to make his decision faster, they could simply make it a done deal tonight. Linghu Hong was instantly terrified and suddenly remembered that Xiao Qiran could read his thoughts. Not knowing how to explain himself, he could only repeat silently in his mind that his heart already belonged to Mao Qiuyu. In this world, Mao Qiuyue was General Mao Shun's beloved granddaughter. She had met him before Xiao Qiran. They had fallen in love and were already together, so he could never be with someone else, because he refused to hurt Mao Qiuyue. Xiao Qiran heard every thought and only let out a faint smile. She said he had it all wrong. This was not a reward but a punishment, and the punished never got to choose. Linghu Hong asked what he had done wrong. Xiao Qiran looked him in the eye and said the Mao family supported the second prince, yet he kept seeing Mao Qiuyue to the crown prince's camp. That was no different from betrayal, so she had every right to deal with him. Before he could process her words, Xiao Qiran stepped right up to him. Linghu Hong blurted out that she was still so childish. Xiao Qiran laughed and said she was not born in the year of the ox. She was born in the year of the fox. Then she gently told him to go ahead and kiss her. Everything was her own choice. When he still hesitated, Xiao Qiran teased that she was only worried he was not fast enough or strong enough. Just as the moment turned awkward, a eunuch's voice echoed through the estate, announcing that an imperial decree had arrived. Ling Huhang and Zhang Beishuan immediately went out to receive it. Both of them knelt and waited for the decree. The eunuch slowly unrolled the scroll and began to read. The words left Ling Huhang completely stunned. He could hardly believe any of it. After the ceremony ended, Zhang Beishuan learned the emperor had issued 2 imperial decrees that day. One granted gold and treasures, while the other shocked everyone by betrothing Princess Xiao Qiran to Ling Huhang. Zhang Beishuan could not believe his ears. In his eyes, the Ling Hu family was only a wealthy merchant clan. Marrying a commandery princess had already been a miracle, yet now even the crown prince's own sister was promised to Ling Huhang. He immediately decided Ling Huhang must have pulled some trick behind the scenes. Then Zhang Beishuan remembered another possibility. The Ling Huhang in this world might share the same soul as the Ling Huhang from the previous book. The thought made him grit his teeth in anger. Even Xiao Qiran, now a princess, still could not escape Ling Huhang. Seeing Zhang Beishuan furious, the second prince simply smiled and reminded him there was still plenty of time before the wedding. Then the second prince slowly revealed his plan. In a few days, Consort Hui would host a flower banquet in the palace for the royal family and the court officials. If Zhang Beishuan could make Ling Huhang lose all his dignity before everyone, the emperor would never let his beloved daughter marry a laughingstock. The royal engagement would fall apart on its own. After hearing the plan, Zhang Beishuan accepted without hesitation, thanked the second prince, and swore to destroy Ling Huhang's reputation. At the same time, outside the Ling Hu residence, a familiar young woman's voice suddenly rang out. Mao Chuyu loudly called for Ling Huhang, ignoring every servant trying to stop her. At that very moment, Princess Xiao Qiran also arrived. The moment Mao Chuyue saw her, she gave a small scoff. Xiao Qiran stayed calm and said that since they both came for Ling Huhang, they might as well go in together and see who he would choose. The servants froze the moment the 2 women faced each other. Then they rushed off in panic to inform their master. Within moments, the tension became almost unbearable. As soon as Ling Huhang stepped outside, both women blocked his path. Mao Chuyue crossed her arms and demanded that he choose between her and Xiao Qiran right away. Ling Huhang could only force a bitter smile and wished a hole would open beneath his feet. Xiao Qiran reminded Mao Chuyue that the Mao family supported the second prince, while the Ling Hu family stood with the crown prince. If she truly wanted to be with Ling Huhang, would her family really switch sides? Mao Chuyue answered with complete confidence. Her grandfather always spoiled her, so convincing him to support the crown prince would not be difficult. Xiao Qiran simply smiled and reminded her that she was the crown prince's own sister and already held the imperial marriage decree. She wanted to know what Mao Chuyue could possibly use to compete. Mao Chuyu refused to back down and boldly declared that the Mao family commanded 500,000 elite heavy cavalry, a force worth more than any imperial decree. Caught between the 2 women, Ling Huhang could only helplessly ask them to argue somewhere else. But the moment he heard about 500,000 troops, he suddenly froze. After a few seconds of silence, he looked straight at Mao Chuyue and asked a question that stunned both women. If the Mao family already commanded 500,000 soldiers, why had they never tried to seize the throne themselves? At that moment, Ling Huhang finally understood how the second prince could rival the crown prince. With the powerful Mao family behind him, the second prince had more than enough backing to compete for the throne. Seeing him deep in thought, Mao Chuyue smiled proudly and said he finally understood how powerful her family really was, giving her every right to compete with Xiao Qiran. Xiao Qiran immediately fired back. She reminded everyone that Mao Chuyue was the newcomer. In the previous life, she was the one engaged to Ling Huhang, and now the emperor had officially granted their marriage. Mao Chuyu calmly replied that she and Ling Huhang already shared a special bond that no one else had. Xiao Qiran frowned slightly and warned Mao Chuyu to stop calling Ling Huhang by such an intimate name. Their argument only grew fiercer, while Ling Huhang stood between them, holding his head in frustration. He felt like he was the one suffering the most after being dragged into their rivalry, again and again. Mao Chuyue remained completely confident. With the Mao family's 500,000 troops behind her, even if Ling Huhang broke off the engagement someday, the emperor might not dare punish him. In the end, the only thing that mattered was choosing the person he truly loved. Xiao Qiran only smiled coldly, convinced Mao Chuyue was far too confident. Just as the tension reached its peak, another announcement came from outside. An imperial decree had arrived. Ling Huhang felt like he had been rescued and quietly let out a sigh of relief. The eunuch read the emperor's order, commanding Ling Huhang to attend the Grand Flower Appreciation Banquet at the palace 2 days later. Ling Huhang immediately knelt to accept the decree, finally escaping the awkward situation for the moment. 2 days later, the Grand Flower Appreciation Banquet officially began. Right then, the system, which had been silent for so long, suddenly issued a warning. Overjoyed, Ling Hu Hong hurriedly called out to the system and demanded to know why people from the previous book had appeared in this world. But the system only kept reporting data errors and repairs before suddenly losing connection. A sharp pain exploded through Ling Hu Hong's head, and he blacked out. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself lying in a completely unfamiliar room. Xiao Churan, sitting beside the bed, sighed with relief and told him he had been unconscious for half an hour. The palace guards found him unconscious inside the carriage and reported it at once, so she brought him back to her palace to take care of him. Just then, a maid entered and reported that the second prince had arrived. Hearing that, Ling Hu Hong immediately tried to leave, saying it was improper for an unmarried man and woman to stay alone together. But Xiao Churan stopped him, saying he had only just awakened and was still weak, so she would handle everything outside. Before they could continue, a familiar voice came from outside. The second prince walked in with a grin, teasing that his sister was already taking her future husband's side before the wedding. His eyes quickly landed on Ling Hu Hong, and he cheerfully called him brother-in-law. The title startled Ling Hu Hong, and he quickly waved his hands, insisting he could not accept it. Jiang Beishuan followed behind the second prince. Seeing him still kneeling, the prince laughed and said they all knew each other, so there was no need for such formalities. Only then did Jiang Beishuan slowly rise to his feet. But the look he gave Ling Hu Hong was icy, as though he was secretly plotting something. The moment he saw Jiang Beishuan, Ling Hu Hong realized the other man had also transmigrated into this world. All three major figures from the previous book were now here, while the system kept malfunctioning and disconnecting without warning. That only made Ling Hu Hong even more cautious. This transmigration had clearly gone far beyond anything he expected. If he really had to die, he at least wanted to know why. Standing nearby, Mao Chuyue was equally shocked to discover that Jiang Beishuan had appeared and was now serving under the second prince. The second prince calmly invited Ling Hu Hong to sit before turning to Xiao Churan, saying their father spoiled her greatly. He had even allowed her to choose her own marriage. But if Ling Hu Hong stayed by her side, without an official status, both her reputation and the Ling Hu family's name would suffer once the rumors spread. Xiao Churan calmly explained that Ling Hu Hong had suddenly collapsed in front of many people at the palace, and she had only brought him back to rest. The second prince smiled and said he was only worried about his sister before ordering Jiang Beishuan to check Ling Hu Hong's pulse. Jiang Beishuan lowered his head and accepted the order. Ling Hu Hong immediately stayed on guard, while Mo Chuyue quietly admired Xiao Churan for fearing no clash with Jiang Beishuan. Jiang Beishuan stepped forward and politely asked the Grand Princess to move aside so he could examine the patient. He also said that if Ling Hu Hong was truly ill, he would help preserve her reputation. Knowing Xiao Churan's status in this era, Ling Hu Hong thanked her for the concern and agreed to the examination. Deep down, he already had a plan. After countless world jumps, he had collected many special items, and now was the perfect time to strike back. Before the diagnosis began, Ling Hu Hong asked what would happen if Jiang Beishuan failed to cure him. Xiao Churan coldly replied that deceiving the royal family meant prison at best and a grave punishment at worst. She then turned to the second prince and asked what official rank Jiang Beishuan held that allowed him to enter the inner palace so freely. Palace rules forbade any man from entering this place without an imperial decree, except eunuchs. The question left the second prince speechless. In the end, he could only say he would apologize to the emperor later, since treating Ling Hu Hong was the top priority. Right then, Ling Hu Hong suddenly broke into a violent coughing fit, and his face turned deathly pale. Xiao Churan and Mao Chuyu were both shocked, believing his condition had become critical. Only Ling Hu Hong knew he had taken a special poison from a previous mission. It was beyond this world's medical knowledge, so no one could identify it. Once Jiang Beishuan finished his diagnosis, he would simply cure himself. Jiang Beishuan began checking his pulse, but his frown only deepened. The pulse surged like crashing waves one moment, then became as thin as silk the next. It rose and fell without pattern, unlike any illness he had ever seen. The more he examined it, the more confused he became. He even suspected it was an incredibly rare poison. The second prince anxiously asked for the result, and Jiang Beishuan slowly declared that Ling Hu Hong would not survive the night. Xiao Churan's face instantly changed. She never expected even Jiang Beishuan to be helpless. He insisted that even gathering every famous physician in the world would not change the outcome. Hearing that, Mao Qiyu exploded with anger. She refused to believe Ling Hu Hong would die so easily, and declared that if anything happened to him, she would never let it go. Only then did Xiao Churan remember his earlier promise. Jiang Beishuan had personally vowed to cure Ling Hu Hong. Faced with the reminder, he could only argue that great medical skill did not mean every illness could be cured. Ling Hu Hong calmly stared at Jiang Beishuan and asked if he was truly certain he was about to die. Jiang Beishuan remained completely confident and insisted the illness was beyond saving. In Jiang Beishuan's mind, he was already dreaming of Ling Hu Hong's death. Once that happened, both Mao Chuyue and Xiao Churan would become his, and eventually the whole empire as well. At that moment, Ling Hu Hong suddenly laughed and bluntly called him a quack. He declared that almost any other doctor could cure this illness. Zhang Beishuan only sneered, believing Ling Hu Hong was delirious from his illness, and advised him to prepare for his funeral. Ling Hu Hong immediately proposed a wager. If he was perfectly healthy 3 days later, Zhang Beishuan would strip off his robe and dance on the city gate before everyone. Ling Hu Hong stayed completely calm because he understood Zhang Beishuan better than anyone. The entire original story was still fresh in his memory. Zhang Beishuan was talented and ruthless, but also far too arrogant after being favored by fate and never tasting defeat. Unfortunately for him, this time everything was different. This was no longer the world he once ruled. Meanwhile, Zhang Beishuan remained just as arrogant. He even thought that after Ling Hu Hong died, he would burn paper money every year in memory of his rival. Ling Hu Hong turned to the Grand Princess and politely asked to rest because he was exhausted. Xiao Qiran gently nodded and told him to recover without worry, since she had brought him here herself. She then looked at the second prince and asked whether Ling Hu Hong could rest, now that he had been declared seriously ill. The second prince smiled and said there was no point making things harder for someone in that condition. Before the conversation ended, the second prince mentioned that a prince from the state of Qi would attend today's banquet. Ling Hu Hong cupped his hands in farewell and left. As soon as they stepped outside, the two quietly separated from the crowd. Xiao Qiran immediately lowered her voice and asked if he was really all right. In the original story, Zhang Beishuan was a legendary miracle doctor, so it was hard to believe he could misdiagnose someone. Ling Hu Hong smiled and took out a pill, explaining that he was completely fine. While everyone was distracted, he had taken a special medicine to fool Zhang Beishuan. The pill in his hand was the antidote. After a little more time, his body would return to normal. Hearing that, Xiao Qiran finally relaxed, though she still scolded him for taking such a huge risk. Ling Hu Hong shook his head and said the one who should be worried was not him, but her. When Xiao Qiran asked why, he explained that the Prince of Qi they had just mentioned had come for her. According to the original story, the Prince of Qi would propose to the Grand Princess. Although the Emperor had promised she could choose her own marriage, he would eventually send her away for the sake of both kingdoms. Xiao Qiran frowned, believing her father had already given her that choice. Ling Hu Hong replied that was only true before the Prince of Qi arrived. When the fate of the kingdom was at stake, even family ties within the royal house had to come second. Xiao Qiran blamed him for not warning her sooner. Ling Hu Hong sighed and explained that the story had already changed too much, and he never expected her to be transported into this world as well. Xiao Qiran firmly declared that she would never accept that marriage. Ling Hu Hong immediately signaled her to lower her voice, reminding her that the palace was full of spies. Xiao Qiran then asked what they should do. After thinking for a moment, Ling Hu Hong said crying or protesting would accomplish nothing. If they wanted to change the outcome, they had to find another path. Xiao Qiran thought for a while and came up with a plan. Ling Hu Hong immediately rejected it, saying it would only make things even worse. He explained that in this era, even a political marriage could still be forced through no matter what happened. Xiao Qiran let out a helpless sigh and asked if there was any other way. Ling Hu Hong looked at her and said there was still one hope. In the original story, the crown prince deeply loved his older sister. Once he inherited the throne, he would never allow her to be married off to another kingdom. Xiao Qiran instantly understood, and Ling Hu Hong simply nodded in confirmation. He reminded her that everything had already drifted far from the original story. Mao Chuye, Zhang Beishuan, and even the second prince were all variables from other worlds, throwing the plot completely off course. Knowing Zhang Beishuan's personality, he would never stay a mere advisor to the second prince forever. He would eventually make his move, and if they kept waiting, they would become nothing more than someone else's pawns. Xiao Qiran quietly looked at him for a long moment, before saying that from now on, they would face everything together. Ling Hu Hong smiled and promised he would never abandon her in this world. Even so, he could not help thinking that the original Xiao Qiran was destined to fall for Zhang Beishuan, while the woman before him had become someone completely different. He hoped she could not hear those thoughts, but Xiao Qiran smiled and said this time she had only read half of them. After their conversation, the two walked away side by side. Ling Hu Hong reminded her that the banquet was about to begin, and the poison in his body had already been completely cured. If anyone asked, they should simply say Xiao Qiran had healed him. She nodded in agreement. Xiao Qiran reminded him that only the two of them could know what had happened today. Ling Hu Hong added that he still needed to check on Mao Chuyu's situation. Xiao Qiran narrowed her eyes with a meaningful smile and asked if he was planning to see Mao Chuyu again. Ling Hu Hong could only smile helplessly and explained that what truly mattered to him was the Mu family's 500,000 heavy cavalry. Hearing that, Xiao Qiran folded her arms and said that if it was for the greater good rather than romance, she would allow him to go. Ling Hu Hong immediately raised his hand in agreement. Satisfied, Xiao Qiran smiled and reminded him to always put important matters first. Ling Hu Hong could only laugh bitterly before following her toward the banquet. Meanwhile, the second prince was still full of doubts and continued asking Zhang Beishuan whether Ling Ho Hong was truly suffering from a fatal illness. Zhang Beishuan immediately insisted that his diagnosis could not be wrong, but before he could finish speaking, he suddenly paused. Ling Hu Hong's calm and confident expression flashed through his mind, making him hesitate. His medical skills had never failed, but if traveling between worlds was possible, perhaps Ling Hu Hong was hiding some extraordinary trick as well. After hearing that analysis, the second prince found it reasonable and continued pressing for answers. Zhang Beishuan concluded that Ling Ho Hong would never have bet his life unless he already had a way to survive. The second prince immediately asked what he planned to do next. Zhang Beishuan coldly replied that the wager required Ling Hu Hong to stay alive for more than 3 days, so all he had to do was make sure Ling Hu Hong never lived long enough to reach that deadline. The plan pleased the second prince, who laughed and wished him success. Zhang Beishuan confidently promised he would not disappoint him. Meanwhile, Mo Chuyu deliberately teased Ling Hu Hong, asking if he planned to deny everything between them. Ling Hu Hong could only force a smile, while Mao Chiu-yu immediately brought up their engagement from the previous story. However, he admitted that he was no longer the same Ling Hu Hang from back then. Mao Chiu-yu did not care at all, and boldly declared that no matter which world they were in, she would make him hers. Ling Hu Hong could only treat it as her officially pursuing him. He also made it clear that he was not someone who fell in love easily. Deep down, he realized this Mao Chiu-yu was far bolder than the original and becoming harder to predict. The moment he finished thinking, she smiled knowingly, proving she had read his thoughts again. Ling Hu Hong could only ask how much she had actually heard. Mao Chiu-yu simply gave him a mysterious smile and told him to figure it out himself. She even teased that he clearly liked her, but kept pretending otherwise. Ling Hu Hong had no intention of continuing the conversation. He used the upcoming palace banquet as an excuse to meet the young Prince of Qi, while Mao Chiu-yu simply smiled as she watched him leave. At the same time, inside the main hall, the second prince raised his cup to toast the crown prince, before suddenly revealing shocking news. He hinted that the Grand Princess was keeping a man by her side, and that man was Ling Hu Hong. He even implied their relationship had gone far beyond normal. The Crown Prince immediately rejected the claim, insisting his elder sister would never do such a thing. But the second prince kept adding fuel to the fire. He mentioned that the emperor was considering marrying the Grand Princess to the young Prince of Qi, and if those rumors spread, both she and the Crown Prince would suffer. Seeing him go too far, the Crown Prince directly asked whether he was trying to threaten him with this matter. The second prince immediately acted innocent, claiming he was only worried about his elder brother. At that moment, Ling Hu Hong entered the hall. The second prince looked at him with a meaningful smile, while the crown prince remained calm and declared that the Grand Princess's marriage had not been decided. She knew what to do and needed no one else's interference. Seeing that his scheme had failed, the second prince merely sneered and returned to his seat. Before sitting down, he casually remarked that standing in that position certainly let someone see many interesting things. Those cryptic words even made the crown prince start to doubt. Could Ling Hu Hang really be someone special to the Grand Princess? If so, then he had never realized it until now. As for Ling Hu Hong, he also noticed Xiao Chengze whispering something to the crown prince, before both of them repeatedly glanced his way. His instincts as a doomed side character immediately warned him to stay alert. He repeatedly tried contacting the system, but received no response. That only made him more uneasy, because ever since arriving here, the system had practically disappeared. There were no missions and no guidance. In the end, Ling Hu Hong could only conclude that he would have to figure everything out on his own until the story reached its end. The more he thought about it, the stranger this world seemed. His destined enemy, Yi Yi, had become an ally, while the replacement characters posed little real threat. After connecting all the clues, he concluded that his true opponent in this story was Zhang Beishuan. Thinking back to the unfinished ending of the previous story, he became even more certain they had both been brought here to continue their rivalry. The only problem was that Zhang Beishuan was now the second prince's strategist and possessed countless schemes. Just as he was lost in thought, Mao Chuyu suddenly appeared beside him, startling him. She casually explained that with the Mao family's status, no one dared stop her from entering the main hall. Before they had talked for long, she noticed Xiao Churen's lingering fragrance on him and immediately questioned him about it. Zhang Beishuan seized the opportunity to step in and deliberately painted Ling Hu Hong as a womanizer, hoping Mo Yuyue would finally see his true colors. But Mao Chuyu was completely unmoved. Instead, she declared that as long as Ling Hu Hong was willing to return, she would always wait for him. Zhang Beishuan continued probing how far Ling Hu Hong's relationship with Xiao Churan had progressed. Ling Hu Hong did not hide anything, and could only say helplessly that Xiao Churan was now the Grand Princess, while he was merely the son of a merchant, so all he could do was go along with the situation. Hearing that, Mao Chuyu asked him directly if he was being forced into it. Ling Hu Hong could only give a helpless smile. Half joking and half serious, he asked them to stop putting pressure on him. But Mao Chuyu openly confessed her feelings, and even mocked him for lacking the courage of a true main character. Ling Huhong replied that staying alive mattered most. He was nothing more than cannon fodder, and one mistake could cost his life. Romance was the last thing on his mind. Mao Chu-yue stayed firm. She said the Mao family commanded 500,000 heavy cavalry. If he chose to be with her, she would convince her grandfather to support him. In return, he had to devote himself to her alone and give up his feelings for Xiao Qiran. Right then, Xiao Qiran arrived. The two women faced each other without backing down and declared they would compete fairly. Mao Chu-yue reminded Ling Huhong to think carefully because today's choice would shape his future. The scene made Zhang Beishuan mistakenly believe Xiao Qiran was jealous because of him, and his hope came back. Meanwhile, the crown prince saw the eldest princess's reaction and instantly realized Ling Huhong was definitely not the male favorite the second prince had claimed. He had almost fallen into the trap. After calming down, the eldest princess looked toward the crown prince. She seriously asked if her younger brother was truly willing to do anything for her. The crown prince answered without hesitation that it was a promise he had made to their mother. Hearing that, the eldest princess said something that left the crown prince stunned. She wanted him to become emperor as soon as possible. Xiao Qiran's sudden question left the crown prince frozen. Seeing he still had not recovered, she urged him to simply answer whether he agreed or not. But then she remembered the emperor was still nearby and immediately lowered her voice. The crown prince quickly warned his sister never to say such things in front of their father. He then choked up and said that if the emperor really forced her to marry into another kingdom, they would be separated forever. She would face a lonely life in a foreign land, and no matter how high his status became, he would never be able to protect her. Seeing the crown prince so emotional, Xiao Qiran quickly comforted him and told him to stay calm and watch the situation for now. She also did not force him to decide immediately, because the best outcome would be for their father to change his mind and revoke the imperial decree. Zhang Beishuan secretly watched everything. He noticed the crown prince was in turmoil, while the eldest princess remained unusually calm. They had to be hiding something. His subordinate quietly reported that the eldest princess and the crown prince seemed to share a secret they did not want others to know. Hearing that, Zhang Beishuan immediately guessed Xiao Qiran was complaining to the crown prince about Ling Huhong. The subordinate agreed and said that if the eldest princess truly turned against Ling Huhong, they would have the perfect chance to eliminate him. Zhang Beishuan immediately warned everyone to watch their words, because they were at a royal banquet where spies were everywhere. Just then, a secret report arrived. The subordinate reported overhearing the second prince and his trusted aide talking about flirting around, and also mentioning a plan to eliminate someone. Zhang Beishuan calmly said he understood and told everyone to return to their seats, because the banquet was about to begin. Not long after, the emperor entered the main hall, and every official immediately knelt and hailed his long reign. After allowing everyone to rise, the emperor announced that today's banquet was held to welcome the young prince of Qi and strengthen the friendship between the two kingdoms. Qi Feng raised his cup on behalf of the king of Qi, offered his greetings, expressed his honor at meeting the emperor, and wished for lasting peace between both nations. After finishing his drink, Qi Feng took the initiative to invite the eldest princess to share a toast. But Xiao Qiran calmly replied that she had already drunk, making the atmosphere instantly awkward. Seeing that, the emperor scolded the eldest princess for her poor manners. He then praised the young prince's outstanding bearing and said many noble ladies in the capital secretly admired him. Right after that, the emperor suddenly asked Qi Feng if he already had someone in his heart. The young prince did not dodge the question and openly admitted that his heart already belonged to someone. When Ling Huhong noticed Qi Feng suddenly looking at him, he immediately sensed trouble. The emperor was delighted and believed that a marriage between the young prince and the eldest princess would make the northern border even more stable. With that in mind, he directly asked Qi Feng if he was willing to marry the eldest princess. Hearing those words, the young prince was so overjoyed that he kept asking if he had heard correctly. Once he realized the emperor was completely serious, he immediately knelt to give thanks. But at that very moment, a firm voice suddenly objected in the middle of the hall. Before his words of gratitude were even finished, someone openly opposed the marriage in front of the entire court. Defying the emperor's decree inside the royal hall was no different from courting death in everyone's eyes. Only after looking closer did everyone realize the speaker was a young woman. Mao Chuyu knelt respectfully and openly declared that she opposed the marriage. The person who had planned to stop the marriage froze when he saw Mao Chuyu beat him to it. Though annoyed, he figured he would still have a chance if the emperor rejected her argument. The emperor looked at Mao Chu-yue and told her to explain herself. Mao Chu-yue said that the family's astrologer had studied the stars the previous night and concluded that the eldest princess was the reincarnation of the Wuku star, carrying the fate of the kingdom. If she married away, it could affect the nation's future. Many secretly thought the Mao family's young lady had gone too far. She actually made up a celestial omen in the middle of the imperial court during a state banquet. Even so, Mao Chuyu continued pleading with the emperor to reconsider. Meanwhile, the other man thought it still was not his time and decided to wait until the tension grew even higher. He quickly guessed that Mao Chuyue must have heard his inner thoughts earlier. Knowing the emperor believed in heavenly omens, she had used that story to scare him, and it actually worked. As for Mao Chuyue, she simply hoped he would think of another useful idea. She kept staring at him, leaving him even more confused. He had no idea whether she wanted his help or was silently blaming him. The emperor also began to hesitate because the Mao family's astrologer had always been known for accurate predictions. Unfortunately, once an imperial decree was spoken, it was difficult to take back. He grew increasingly anxious and secretly wished a few ministers would step forward so he would have an excuse to withdraw the decision. Instead, the entire hall stayed silent. The emperor was so irritated that he secretly cursed the officials for taking their salaries, while none of them dared speak when it mattered. Just as the atmosphere reached a deadlock, another person stepped forward in opposition. Seeing an unfamiliar face, the emperor asked for his identity. The man introduced himself as Linghu Hong of the Linghu family, invited to attend the banquet. After learning he was related to Shenyang Commandery Princess, the emperor asked why he also opposed the marriage. The other man silently cursed Linghu Hong for stealing his chance to stand out. Still, he believed it would change nothing because the emperor had already made up his mind. Even so, he secretly swore to Xiao Qiran that if she was truly forced to marry, he would steal the bride and never let her marry the young prince. But Linghu Hong's next words shocked the entire hall when he declared that the eldest princess was suffering from a fatal illness and likely had little time left. The eldest princess immediately demanded to know if he understood what he was saying. Even the young prince suspected it was just an excuse to reject the marriage. Linghu Hong quickly explained that he knew some medicines and had examined the eldest princess's pulse at Shenyang Commandery Princess's residence a month earlier. If the emperor doubted him, he could summon the imperial physicians to verify it. Even the eldest princess was completely bewildered. She had no idea when she had supposedly become gravely ill, and she secretly decided she would never take any medicine no matter what. At that moment, Zhang Beishuan, a guard under the second prince, also stepped forward. He volunteered that he was also skilled in medicine and requested permission to examine the eldest princess's pulse on the spot. Though furious inside, the eldest princess still extended her hand while constantly wondering who was really behind Today's scheme. After finishing the examination, Zhang Beishuan solemnly reported that the eldest princess was in critical condition and had no more than 3 days left to live. The second prince immediately denied it, arguing that his elder sister looked healthy and full of color. How could she possibly be gravely ill? He even warned Zhang Beishuan not to deceive the emperor. Zhang Beishuan remained calm, insisting he would never dare lie before the emperor, and suggesting that the imperial physicians confirm his diagnosis. The emperor immediately turned to the eldest princess and asked what had happened. Seizing the chance, she sighed that if she truly was seriously ill, how could her father bear to send her so far away in marriage? Hearing that, the emperor immediately announced that anyone who could cure the eldest princess would receive a generous reward. One imperial physician after another examined her pulse before kneeling to admit failure. They confirmed her vital energy was in chaos. All 5 organs were damaged, and there was nothing they could do. The eldest princess was furious. She was perfectly healthy, yet everyone insisted she was about to die. She kept thinking about Linghu Hong, suspecting he had done something to her. But after thinking it through, she remembered he had only checked her pulse once. The imperial physicians could only bow their heads and admit their medical skills were not enough to save her. The emperor grew more worried with every word and asked the entire hall if anyone could save his beloved daughter. The eldest princess immediately turned to Linghu Hong and demanded a full explanation. Zhang Beishuan seized the chance to shift the blame onto Linghu Hong. He claimed Linghu Hong discovered the illness first, but deliberately kept it secret, proving he had hidden motives. Linghu Hong simply smiled at the accusation and calmly replied that he had been searching for a cure ever since finding the princess's illness. He finally found the right medicine this morning before entering the palace. The only problem was that refining it would take 49 days, making everyone believe it was already too late. Meanwhile, Zhang Beishuan secretly planned to use this chance to get rid of both Linghu Hong and Xiao Qiran, saving himself plenty of trouble later. Linghu Hong calmly finished speaking and declared that although the medicine needed 4 to 9 days, he could still keep the eldest princess alive for 3 more days. That was why he had opposed sending her away in marriage. Zhang Beishuan sneered and mocked him. He said Linghu Hong was already at death's door, so there was no way he could save anyone. He even claimed he had checked Linghu Hong's pulse that morning and confirmed he only had 3 days left. According to him, it was all a lie to drag the eldest princess down with him, and he urged the emperor to punish Linghu Hong for deceiving the throne. Faced with every accusation, Ling Huhong stayed completely calm. He secretly thought that without Xiao Churan's accidental hint, today's perfect counterattack would never have happened. Xiao Churan finally realized that Ling Huhong must have secretly altered her body. Even so, the plan had at least helped her escape the forced marriage. Ling Huhong immediately challenged Jiang Beishuan to a bet. If he did not die, Jiang Beishuan would have to strip naked, run to the city gate, and dance. If Ling Huhong really saved the eldest princess, Jiang Beishuan would pay an even heavier price. Right then, a series of strange warning messages suddenly echoed inside Ling Huhong's mind. The alerts reported abnormal data intrusion as the system began emergency repairs. Ling Huhong lost focus for a moment, making everyone ask if something was wrong. He brushed it off and continued forcing Jiang Beishuan to accept the wager. Moments later, everyone noticed Jiang Beishuan had become like a completely different person. Even his eyes and aura had changed. He coldly declared that Ling Huhong had no chance of winning and insisted the eldest princess would survive even without his help. After hearing the system warnings, Ling Huhong immediately suspected Jiang Beishuan had also obtained a system or a similar special power. As the tension reached its peak, the eldest princess stepped in and asked to retire so the two men would stop arguing. She urged the emperor to put the peace talks with the Prince of Qi first. Even if she only had 3 days left, that would still be enough to settle everything. Moved by his daughter's maturity, the emperor announced that whoever saved the eldest princess could make any request they wished, but if both failed, they would both be executed. The banquet soon came to an end, and the eldest princess returned to rest. On the way out of the main hall, Xiao Churan noticed Ling Huhong had been frowning the entire time and quietly asked if something had changed. He replied through voice transmission that Jiang Beishuan's sudden transformation was too suspicious, so he believed Jiang Beishuan had also gained a system. Xiao Churan felt the same, so the two quickly found a secluded place to discuss the situation in detail. Elsewhere, the second prince was displeased to see Mao Chuyu standing beside Ling Huhong again, because the Mao family had already pledged their support to him. Jiang Beishuan immediately reassured him, promising that with his help, the second prince's path to the throne would be smooth. After thinking it over, Ling Huhong decided to reveal the entire truth to Mao Chuyue. He confessed that he was a transmigrator trapped inside the world of a novel, constantly moving through different storylines under the control of a system. Every time he appeared, he was cast as the villain, and his only goal was to survive. He also revealed that Xiao Churan and Jiang Beishuan had originally come from the previous novel world, but after their systems malfunctioned, they all ended up in the current world together. She had known everything for a long time by hearing his inner thoughts. Even when Ling Huhong told her she was only a character inside a novel, Mao Chuyue remained calm. She said that if transmigration into a novel was possible, then being a fictional character was nothing surprising. She even asked who could prove that Ling Huhong was not a character in an even bigger novel. Her words left Ling Huhong completely stunned because he had never considered that possibility. Still, he quickly pushed the thought aside because a far greater danger was waiting. Ling Huhong explained what happened in the throne hall, where his system suddenly detected abnormal data and began emergency repairs. From that moment on, Jiang Beishuan changed completely, making Ling Huhong suspect he had obtained a new system or another special ability. Looking back at every clue, Ling Huhong feared the story was about to take a completely different path. He admitted that he had once bet Jiang Beishuan in Xiao Churan's chamber that Jiang Beishuan would never cure his illness. To guarantee victory, he had also made Xiao Churan suffer from the same disease. But the current situation had gone beyond his calculations, forcing him to prepare a backup plan. The moment Mao Chuyue heard that Ling Huhong had been inside Xiao Churan's chamber, her expression changed, and she asked if he had gone there willingly or by accident. Ling Huhong quickly explained that he had suddenly passed out, and Xiao Churan ordered her people to bring him to her chamber so he could rest. But Mao Chuyue focused only on that detail. She reminded him that he had admitted before everyone that the scent on him came from being intimate with Xiao Churan. She even suspected he had faked his collapse just to get close to her. Ling Huhong could only keep insisting that he had truly lost consciousness and that everything afterward was completely unexpected. Mao Chuyu refused to hear another word. She flashed a dangerous smile and declared that tonight she would make him pay for deceiving her. Before Ling Huhong could defend himself, she dragged him away while he kept insisting everything started because of the system malfunction. In the end, Mao Chuyu was the first to give in. She softened her voice and begged him to let her go. Ling Huhong laughed and teased her, saying she had been acting so fierce a moment ago, yet now she was the one admitting defeat. Mao Chuyu blushed deeply and complained that he was bullying her too much over a single joke. Ling Huhong smiled and replied that she had interrupted him during an important discussion, so this little punishment was still too light. He pulled her even closer and said he wanted to continue what they had started earlier. Embarrassed and a little hurt, Mao Chuyue asked who truly mattered more in his heart, her or Xiao Churan, and why she always had to compete with someone else. She also accused him of treating her like an easy girl. Ling Hu Hong only smiled and said he had always been a villain and never claimed to be a righteous gentleman. But Mao Chuyu firmly declared that villain or not, she wanted him to belong only to her. Ling Hu Hong looked at her and replied that it all depended on whether she was capable of keeping him by her side. Just as the atmosphere between them grew more intimate, the eldest princess's maid suddenly rushed over to find Ling Hu Hong and urgently told him to come at once. Before he could ask what had happened, the eldest princess's urgent call echoed from nearby.